We don't have theme music yet.
Yet.
Welcome to Games
And stuff.
I'm Alan.
I'm Greg.
We're doing our second episode now. The first one was on 50 years in gaming, recapping that. That was fun. That's available on the Games and Stuff playlist. If you haven't watched that, go check that out.
Yeah, we recorded that about 50 years ago.
Couple months. Yeah. Episode 2, which we've been talking about for a while. Top 10 favorite video games.
Yeah, some of us had trouble narrowing our list down.
Yeah, some of us. We both did, but Greg came back with more than I did. We have there's a spoiler warning. Yes, we'll be talking about the stories of the games, obviously, and their epicness, so we'll be revealing plots and stuff. And also, we have written here that this is in no particular rank order. So these are our top favorite games, but we've done things like put, the Mass Effects in the same line because we share that, or the Last of Us's in the same line, or the Red Dead's in the same line, that kind of thing. The FromSoft games are in the same line. And certain games are connected, like Coder and Baldur's Gate 3, that kind of thing. So again, no particular rank order, but we'll be zigzagging. So Greg will start us off, and then I'll go, and then we'll share this one, and then we'll kind of go that way. And then later on, we have some honorable mentions, and we won't reveal those yet. You'll have to watch till later to get access to that. And of course, we'll have some stuff to go along with the games.
Yes. Very important part.
The very important part. So, all right, Greg, blast us off. I'll go ahead and I'll play some gameplay stuff while we have Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and then over here what we'll do is we'll kind of pull up Knights of the Old Republic. We'll pull up some gameplay of it like this. Well, that's not. There's gameplay. Okay, cool. So we'll have that kind of playing.
Already making me nostalgic.
Yeah. And also data about it. Let me pull up a little bit of data about it. So that's a 2003 initial release.
Oof.
All right. So Coder made Greg's top 10. Let's hear it.
Yeah, even though we talked about not having like a theme, I would kind of argue that our first games we have listed are probably in our personal top 3 if we had to cut it down, and they both happen to be tied pretty heavily into like the old school BioWare RPG genre.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think this was just one of those core games for me in that I love Star Wars. You feel like you're in it. You get to make the choices. I'd never played a game that had anything like that before.
Yep.
Still very young. I remember I couldn't even like progress past like Dantooine until I had an Xbox magazine cheat code disc that super statted my character up so that I could plow through everything without having to do any math on how to level a character up. And it was like the night before leaving for a vacation, and I played it for like 12 straight hours. Didn't sleep, plowed through, beat the game. And it's a game I still just once or twice a year go all the way through again, whether it be on phone, iPad, or the current Xbox generation.
You'll hear Greg's has bought many of these games at least 5 times.
Yeah, it should be its own list, is the number of games that I've bought more than 5 times. Just being one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, he said this is even available on iPad. I was like, what?
It's on my phone right now.
Yeah.
I don't even play phone games. It's on there.
So yeah, your highlights are are things like it connects you to Star Wars, which you love. It connects you to RPGs,
Yeah, like,
which you love. Choices,
like I'm
hard
not,
choices.
yeah, like the biggest Star Wars guy, but like I put this as one of my favorite Star Wars stories ever. Yeah, like the idea that you get to be a Jedi, have your own lightsaber, the morality system,
Yep.
having different endings, encouraging different playthroughs. The music, it's one of my favorite game soundtracks ever made, and I still can just blast it if I'm working on stuff or doing anything. It's just kind of a core moment in time for me is seeing this, and I get all nostalgic just seeing it play up on that little YouTube video.
Mm-hmm. This is one that I'm ridiculously excited for a remaster of, and I know much of the internet is excited for one if we can get one.
Well, they had the one announced a few years ago, and now that's kind of in development hell, so it's not looking good. I think they claim that it's still in progress, but hopes aren't high for a remaster of this guy.
Because it's really one of the hardest things about games that are over 20 years old is that there's these more clunky visual is the less this isn't like Nanite where you have a ton of polygons or triangles and you have a ton of resolution, and it's pretty good for 2003 for sure.
Yeah, and it's not and because of the gameplay being based off an old like D&D rule set, it's like honestly the visuals, all they'd have to really do is spice them up and people would probably be content without having to play with like the inventory system or adding more choices or anything. I don't know what they would try to do. I wish they went with KOTOR 3 instead of the MMO, but I still just hold the first KOTOR, and I know a lot of people love the second one. I was never a PC gamer, so I never got to play like the patched and fixed official version of it, so my memories of that is the broken original Xbox game. But yeah, I love this game and its sequel. It's just great.
Yep. Yeah, this is...
And a precursor to a lot of the games we're going to talk about.
True. Yep.
Going forward.
That's a good point, too. It's like the DNA from KOTOR is embedded in Baldur's Gate 3, which is coming up next. It was embedded in the Mass Effect trilogy, which is coming up next. Yeah. So that's really interesting how, there's been a lot of... You take from the DNA from games that were just acclaimed games, and then you add your own combinations and signatures and differentiations, but then you still have such a core. They're really revolutions, like huge paradigm shifts in the game, and then you kind of further evolve. Yeah, because Baldur's Gate 3 is an evolution, you could say, of a lot of what was seeded in KOTOR.
It's almost both a regression and evolution because it goes back to that old school, gameplay and choice-driven stuff just blowing up with modern tech. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah, slapping 2025 graphics on KOTOR would probably sell 10 million units.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would. That was one of the main things that just held me back from finishing it up myself, was just how the 2003 is just like, even you have later on your list, you have Ocarina of Time, Zelda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, what is my most recent game? Not counting remakes.
Yeah. So you got Ocarina of Time down there, and that's, again, a game that hasn't been remastered, but a lot of people have said that if you remaster this game, it will easily sell 10 million units. And it'll just make it easier, because this game is also when was this one?
It's actually funny because like I love games and still play all the new ones. My most recent game is Bloodborne.
Hi, Tiny. My camera shut off. Oh, there it is.
That's cool.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I do really appreciate the voice act. It's not cool because it's shut off randomly, but it's great because you can just voice activate it and wake it up. These little OBSBot cameras. Yep, 1998. That's right. Yep. So this is another game that hasn't had a remaster. Warcraft 2 just got a remaster. We'll look at that. Obviously, RE4 got a remake recently, but so. Let me move that mouse cursor. Where is that? Oh, it's right here. This one. Yeah, just want to move that out of the way. There we go. Okay.
I also chose my words carefully to not spoil this 22-year-old game. So go play it, Alan.
It's coming. It's coming for sure. Especially because the choice, I'm so in love with choices in video games and that being so important. And so then Greg, of course, has been saying for months now, you got to play Coder. You got to play Coder. Everyone online, when I'm like, gosh, I love the choice system in Mass Effect or Baldur's Gate, the little comments underneath are like, you need to play Coder. So, yeah, that's very much so at the top of the finish list. Just, again, whatever it is about this old... You don't want it to become like Last of Us where you're remaking a game every 2 years or whatever. You don't want it to be like that, but you also don't want to drag your heels for 25 years and not make a remake of a game that everybody loves. So you got to find... And you'll just be able to plug this right into AI and just be like, hey, AI, remaster Coder for us. Add updated visuals. And doot.
Yeah, get going on that.
Please and thank you, AI. We love you. Well, that makes one of us.
All right.
Greg, do you love AI?
Yeah, I totally know a lot about it so that we can talk about it. What's that steak sauce, right?
Yeah.
Or the Steven Spielberg movie that he made and finished after Kubrick died.
AI steak sauce. Oh, gosh. Okay, so...
Sticking in the BioWare, like, RPGs.
Yes.
Moving over to probably the best version of this style of game to ever be made with Alan's top of his graph.
Yeah.
Table.
So, Baldur's Gate 3, like, why is that up here? It's kind of funny because I haven't finished Coder and you haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3. This is another one of those, one of the only ones that we haven't co-finished.
I'll try to finish it in the next 22 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, before the remake. All right, so... I mean, this one requires... Man. Okay, one of my favorite things to do when I'm finishing up a video game is I like to try to distill it down to like 2 words or something. It's like, how do you put a video game into 2 words? And I guess I chose RPG chess for this one. I really like, and I think it's a pretty strong hit or miss for people with this. But when you play the game, you have a system that looks kind of like this, where you're really taking your time to kind of make moves. Everything is Like, look at that, right? You're really precisely having to move a certain distance. You're precisely having to choose which attack you want to make. You know, you have this wheel. You have this like scroll wheel of options, right? Of what kind of attacks you want to make. And that's so fun about it. I love that about it. It's a four character, 4 class. You choose your own character and class, but then you have 3 accompanying party characters that you usually want to try to diversify. You know, so if you're running the build of a mage, then you're going to have a warrior as another person that you bring along a lot. You'll probably have some sort of a hybrid, maybe like a druid that can do a little bit of both. And then you'll, you know, have somebody that probably also casts spells, or that's also a front line. But so you have a lot of way to play this game with all 4. You get to bring all 4 with you through the game. And the game, it makes you make hard choices about if you want to make choices around being, quote, good or being bad or evil.
I will say that's part of the beauty of this game too. I've not finished it, but I've spent plenty of time playing it and looking up content on it. But you know, you mentioned having all the different classes and parties and combos of that, or not. One of my favorite kind of recurring YouTube things is the 4 dwarf barbarian playthrough as they run around doing all kinds of fun things. So yeah, I think the biggest thing that you like of this is it's all choice.
Yeah.
You know, how do you want to play it and do it your style?
Yep. And like, you know, yeah, it's everything from the choices being in the dialogue options to, you know, in exhausting all of those dialogue options. And then there's also all of the different storylines that spin off that are different cutscenes and different storylines from those choices. But then there's also the choices that you make right here in the middle of the playthrough where you're like, okay, you know, I have this little video up on my YouTube channel under my videos. Yeah, that's where it is. And, you know, here's one way to look at playing through Baldur's Gate, because there's videos here about learning how to leverage meta magic or learning how to, you know, sneakingly use barrels, how to find invisible enemies. This is a good one to show. How to sneakingly use a smoke powder barrel in combat, right? So here's your 4 characters on the side. You know, here's your inventory. And so then you pick up this barrel. So here you are, you're out of range, right? The red here is the range of sight of the enemy. So once you walk into that red range of sight, you trigger an enemy interaction. But if you pick up this barrel, this explosive barrel, you drop it right outside of that line. So again, this is very much like that RPG chess thing, right? So you drop it right outside that line, then you sneakingly move backwards and move backwards, and then you have your mages cast these distant spells, right? So it costs you points to cast these distant spells, but once you cast it off like this fireball, right? So here's this clump of enemies, right? And so you have to move a little bit closer to get it to work, but then there you go. So now you're going to use this distance spell, cast the fireball into this clump of enemies. That's going to trigger the interaction. So there it goes. Bang. Nope, not yet. Okay, there it is. Okay. So here goes the spell. Boom. And then, so now that starts off commence battle, right? And now what you do is through here, once the enemies start coming down to you, they're going to come down to you. And there it is, right? So there's these enemies. Now they're all clumping by this barrel that you set in place. You see? So this is very much like thinking many moves in advance and planning this type of... So you use a fire spell on the barrel right there. And then boom, bang. And then that does a tremendous amount of further damage. And it saves you a bunch of damage. It saves you from having to use your healing potions and all that kind of stuff. And so that's how to, that's a good way of understanding how this game is a lot like chess. Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, to go back to your 2 words to kind of summarize a game, I think a game like Baldur's Gate, you can almost just use the words what if. And it seems like that's what the developers just kept asking themselves. What if someone tries to do this in this situation? What if this happens?
Right.
And the amount of times they have an answer for that random question is astounding. And it's really just kind of a gem that this got made and got as popular as it was.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good way to say it. Everything is what if, and then the story or gameplay follows that. Unbelievably fun. Still haven't done a dark playthrough of it yet, and I'm sure that Greg's probably done light and dark playthroughs of Coder a bunch.
Yes.
Yeah. But the dark playthrough of this game is going to have a lot of different ways to play when you do play with the dark. So, super fun story also in general about I guess sometimes we just won't give a spoiler, but in general, just like what kind of choices are you going to make in a big, when you're the one that the world depends on making the choice of whether everybody's going to succumb to a single thing, let's say, or not. Something like that. Will people be free, or will they be all under one spell? Something like that. Mm-hmm. It's a fun it's fun stories. I like those a lot. So that was Baldur's Gate 3. Now we share the Mass Effect. But Greg specifically said 2.
Well, I was trying to not cheat and do 1 game per slot after all this immense pressure from one of the other guys that works at Game and Stuff. But
who is that? You mean Greg?
Jeff. Yeah. But no, I think this is kind of like that pinnacle of the epic story being in its own universe. I think BioWare proving it could work with the existing IP allowed it to create its own universe and genre, and not genre, but its own universe and characters. And I think this is just the peak for any kind of RPG stuff for me. Is you don't have as much choice as a Baldur's Gate or anything like that, but having this kind of set narrative, how are you going to progress through it? Gameplay still holds up pretty well, especially once you get past the first game.
Yeah.
This is just if I were to have a desert island style game that I could play for eternity, it's Mass Effect style games. And a big thing with my list and my top 10 is I tried to stick with games that I've played through multiple times, not just hit it and quit it, done. That was awesome. But when I looked at the Mass Effect trilogy, instead of just saying all of them, which I do love them all, excuse me, is definitely 2 is the only, I'll never play Mass Effect 3 without having played 1 and 2 before it. Mass Effect 1, the only reason I really played multiple times was because there was no sequel at the time. But Mass Effect 2 is the only one where I can just, I'll just preload a character or make some random decisions, import stuff from the first game. I can start at 2 and be good. Mm-hmm. And I've beaten it. Good, bad, save everyone, get rid of everyone. Just it's just a perfect game in my eyes.
Yep.
And I love movies, and to bring in the all-star actors that they got in, like all the cast of Firefly and the best president the United States has ever had, Martin Sheen, Jared Bartlett from The West Wing, being the elusive man. It's pretty epic stuff. It's a miracle that this happened when it did.
Yeah. Yeah, like if we could boil this one down to 2 words, right? I had something like, I remember if it was, like Galactic Odyssey, maybe something like that.
I was gonna say space opera, but that's kind of
already Star Wars-esque space opera. Yeah.
Tough.
So here you are. That's even a good pause scene right there, right? Because right here, this basically tells you what's going on. You're Commander Shepard, which is either male or female based on what you choose, but you're tasked with a galactic drama, basically. And you are like, okay, I'm now the one that is being asked by the Galactic Council, because I've shown up repeatedly in ways that are trying to maintain some sort of galactic order and peace or whatever. And so I'm being entrusted to mediate between species and civilizations and make these types of galactic mediation, galactic drama. Like, it depends on what choices you make, but this aspect to it, here's your what's the ship again? The
Normandy.
Normandy, thank you. Here's your Normandy, right? This is your ship, and you have a crew that's trusting you, that's starting to trust you more, that you're recruiting different crew members. Another nice thing about Mass Effect is that it allows you to bring 2 crew members with you into your missions, and so you get to choose which crew members, and the crew members have different perks and benefits of bringing those crew members along.
But the kind of the beauty or pain, depending on how big of an RPG guy you are, is you have much less control over them compared to
like Baldur's
Gate
yeah.
Or even KOTOR. Like, they're automated there, but it's also more, instead of just looking at stats, why you want them in your party, it's the writing is so good on the characters that you pick who would you want to go with you, and that trumps their ability moveset. Like, Garrus's best ability could be to call for 911 and ask for help and throw rocks at guys, and he would still be my number 1 guy, party character, or Rex, or any of it. I guess the entire party of Mass Effect 2 I would count, because it's just incredible. But these are also the games that made me stop, like in games like this where you have like a light side and a dark side playthrough. Since like Mass Effect 2, I've not done dark side playthroughs because I can't lose these characters. They need to all live. So whenever I replay them now, it's always whatever gets them all to survive and move on, because I can't stand to lose them anymore. Yeah. So they ruin that for me.
So that's what I love. I love how you just said that. If you tune into what Greg just said, he basically just said that a game can trigger so much emotional investment into the characters that it will causally influence your decisions to play on the light side, to not lose characters. I love hearing that about these immersive video games, because it's all about how much can you have believability and sell the player on believing that they are in fact emotionally attached to the story and the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this game does that really well. I mean, later on when you get your own crib, that's in the 3rd one, right?
Yeah, specifically that DLC that came out where it kind of puts an end
cap. It's in the DLC?
Okay. It was originally.
Okay. When once you get that and you start hosting your teammates at your crib, and you're starting to like really bond with them.
So that's another fun perspective. If you didn't see the last one, is that 'Cause I tended to have played all these games in the moment when they came out, whereas for Alan here, these are all in the last almost year or two.
Basically, yeah.
So, and I try not to hold games for what they were when they came out. So, like, we're taking Mass Effect and Mass Effect 3, like, in its best form, not all the
that's
hate everyone had when it came out.
Right.
Which I thought was overblown, but I mean, if you're a fan, be passionate,
Right.
that's fine. But we're kind of taking it more from the perspective of, like, it's been patched. It's
Exactly.
the current state it is.
Yeah.
The idea of it.
Let's be clear that when Cyberpunk 2077 is on this list, we are not talking about Cyberpunk in 2020. We are talking about Cyberpunk in 2023. That's your water bottle.
Mic check.
Yeah. Because that's about when the patches finished up. Well, the important ones, right?
Yeah, and when it worked.
Right. And that same thing's true with the Mass Effect games, is that sometime around 2010 and 2013, they were less stable upon release.
Well, they were stable, for the most part stable. It was just more, it was hard trying to figure out how to put a bow on such a big story and how to make it so that all the choices and everything. And a lot of people didn't like, the original way that the endings were presented for Mass Effect 3. And kind of jokingly just saying, did you do like the blue, the green, or the red option? I don't even remember, like, because I'll be honest, I didn't finish Mass Effect 3 when it came out because I lost my save files. So I replayed it and finished it in the trilogy that came out a few years ago. But yeah, just the scope got so big they couldn't put an ending that was great for everyone. So they worked and tried to kind of do that. And
right.
And that's the funny part, because that was like deemed as unacceptable back then, whereas now games come out just broken and they won't be fixed for half a year or a year or longer, and we're kind of okay with that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how things change like that, because I even told you, I think maybe on the last episode I mentioned that there's a whole culture of gamers now that just refuse to buy games upon release, and they'll just wait until 6 to 12 months until it's patched up and cleared up, and they've heard from the rest of the gaming community, is this actually truly worth it, or was it complete hype? Yeah, huge. I mean, I'm really glad that we shared this one on our list. Probably, if you haven't yet, put yourself in the shoes of making these types of choices on a galactic stage, mediating interspecies and intercivilizational dramas and conflicts. This is probably the best way to do that, to get that experience. It's so cool.
Agreed.
Yeah, love it. Okay. Another shared one. Interestingly enough, Greg put The Last of Us without the second one, and I put The Last of Us including 1 and 2. But do you want to speak to that first? Why?
Yeah, well, this was, again, trying to not cheat by combining multiple games, because, if I might be real, I had the Mass Effect trilogy just written as a trilogy, but if I'm going to boil it down, it's 2. Going on to The Last of Us, when I looked at them, I just thought of, again, tying into the whole idea of like how many times I replayed it. I mean, I sold off my Xbox and all its games back in the day to get a PS3 for The Last of Us, knowing that this generation was going out, but just for it, and it was just magical. I remember I played it. You watched me. You didn't even get it at the time. My brother sat and would watch. You guys would be away and don't progress or hold off on this or what happened, and it was just epic story, fun to play. I beat it multiple times on PS3, beat it multiple times on PS4 on all the difficulties. Now it's on PS5. Played through it multiple times on PS5, but it's just that it's not too long. You can beat it in a couple sittings. Excellent acting, fun gameplay. Yep. It's scary. It gives you those moments of pause and reflection. And 2, when I played it, I loved it. It was still awesome to play. I liked the story, even with all the different turns it took. But it's also one where I just don't feel the urge to replay it. I don't know if it's just because it is so long, or like it has so many more like open world-ish kind of aspects, or it's like if I want to make some progress without missing anything in the first game, maybe because of just its scope on the PS3, you can just kind of push through and make progress in a little bit of time, whereas I feel like the second one was more of a commitment to play. But yeah, I don't knock any of the story or other bits of the second, even though bummed to see some of the things that happened and scared to see how some of the characters turned. But yeah, the first game I can still restart that anytime, go through that. It's just a perfect game there for me.
Right. Oh my gosh, it just makes you feel like you're there as Joel, just walking Ellie along, right?
Yeah, jeez. I'll just watch this and you talk.
It's just like, that I think that's another thing that the game did so unbelievably well, is it just puts you in the role of being a father to an adopted, basically, daughter.
Yeah, just a simple, you're not mediating civilizations and deciding the fate of the universe, although I guess you could technically have decided the fate of humans in the game. But yeah, it's much narrower in scope than all the stuff we loved about the last games. Whereas it's like, nope, this is the story. You are experiencing the story as it was written, as the developers intended. And it shows that kind of style of game can also, kill it with fans and people. And this game, maybe more so than others. I mean, we have the acclaimed HBO series, out being made, all the different remasters of this one. What is going on with part 3 if it's going to come out. So, yeah, just kind of showing this impact on culture, even though it's a much smaller game.
Yep. Right. Yep, there's your HBO series of it now. So yeah, if you watch the other video that could be good to pull up for this is I think you're the one who showed me the making of The Last of Us.
The
Grounded.
Sony first party, yeah.
So if you go to Grounded one, making of The Last of Us, and then if you watch this video, what you'll see in this video is you'll see this is so good. I'm glad we clicked right into it, right? So this is where Joel's, we'll spoil it, but yeah, so this is where his daughter at the very beginning of the game, Sarah, thank you. But this was cutting edge at the time. This motion capture is so cutting edge at the time, and it's so like the emotions are so visceral and real, and it just makes you feel like it turns your in-game investment dial to 11, basically,
Right.
Yeah. So this is a great video to watch, to get the music, to get everything that's really went into into it. And the mechanics, and then they have another one for Grounded 2, which is the making of The Last of Us Part 2, because in this one, one thing that I want to show is, I mean, they really went so in depth and so in detail when you look at, like, oh yeah, right around this part. This, when they were trying to describe how they had to make different subtle animations, look at how she's underwater, right? Not every game you'll have that type of, when you're underwater, that they'll move their arms like that when they're by the on the ground of the water, under the water.
Yeah, that's one of those funny, crazy details, and that's kind of a Naughty Dog staple, because I still, when I replay the Uncharted games, walking close to a wall and Drake just going to the wall and touching the wall, I'm like, whoa,
exactly.
And I'm not even noticing all these little touches like what you just pointed out with swimming underwater,
right?
Or the facial expressions that you can't even see a lot of the times unless you like go into a camera mode or something, and it's like, geez, they did that,
right? One more thing I want to say about The Last of Us, especially, part 2, where obviously you're now playing as Ellie, an older Ellie, and then you're also switching back and forth and playing as Abby, who is beautifully positioned as someone that you could call a nemesis, but then
antagonist,
or an antagonist. Thank you.
Or protagonist, agonist.
Gunist. The way that this game, the first, and here's playing as Abby. So the way that the first game was positioned was where it was about, you're losing your daughter, and there's this huge civilizational issue happening with a parasitic infection. And then you're now responsible for taking Ellie, who may be the only possible source of a cure, to try to ameliorate the situation. And that bonding process happens through the whole game. And then, she has to die in order for the cure to go on. And Joel's choice in the heat of the last moment is to save her instead of having her die. Am I doing this right? Generally. Yeah. But now he has to kill somebody. He doesn't technically even have to kill them to save her at the end.
Yeah, it's a much more personal story, because the stories of Joel, and he loses his world with the death of his daughter, and then the whole story is, as you would guess after playing, is him, can he reconnect, can he find that love again, can he fill that gaping hole? And for him, there's nothing else, even if it's the fate of humanity at stake. He's trying to fill that hole again, and anything else is just on the outside. So I love that it's just kind of that personal. He doesn't care what the stakes are. What this is, it's him and his daughter is the story,
right?
And then part 2.
So let me come in. Yeah. So it didn't, at the end of 1. It did not have to be that Joel had to kill who was operating on Ellie in order to save her. He could have found a way to neutralize without, right? Or something like that. But because he did, and nobody blinked an eye about it, about killing who was operating there and then taking her and rescuing her. And
whether it be a magnum round to the head or a flamethrower, as some people have done.
And this is the nuts thing, is then the second game picks up saying, guess what? Who you chose to kill at the end of the first game, in order to rescue Ellie, you are now going to be playing as the daughter of the man that you killed in order to save Ellie.
And so again, it's like the fate of humanity isn't at stake, or like it's just all personal. This wound was inflicted to heal myself, and now you've just pushed that problem onto someone else, and now their life is all about it. And
yeah, right. So it triggers this fascinating ripple effect and cascade where now you're playing as Abby, who is the daughter of the surgeon that was operating on Ellie when you killed him, and now you're playing as Abby while Ellie's older, and now Abby has the desire for revenge or vengeance for her father, which is to find and kill Joel. And it's fascinating because that tie-in, I just love. I think give me the name again of Naughty Dog's the writer.
Neil Druckmann.
Yeah,
the main guy.
Neil Druckmann got and Haley from, what was her name from Westworld?
Ooh.
Haley, Last of Us. Right? Yeah, Haley Gross. Yeah. So she's from Westworld, best known for writing 2 episodes from Westworld, and then co-writing the Last of Us Part 2. Neil and Haley, I think, did such a good job, along with the rest of the Naughty Dog team, just of making that weave. They made the weave so beautiful. I think it's one of the greatest weaves in video games ever, because they wove in the ending of part 1 to trigger this crazy thing in part 2 that then you have to learn how to basically grow empathy and grow a heart to try to play as Abby and to understand where Abby's coming from and why she's doing what she's doing. And then as Abby kills Joel and Ellie flips out and seeks vengeance on Abby,
you just put the ball back in Ellie's court.
Exactly. So now Ellie's trying to feel within herself. You as the gamer have to feel in yourself, am I going to do the next cycle of vengeance and kill her closest people? And then she's going to kill my closest people. And then that famous, one of the last scenes in Last of Us Part 2 where they're just beating the shit out of each other in the water.
Yeah.
And you're finally feeling in yourself the emptiness of revenge and the emptiness of vengeance. And it's just, and you get to basically superposition yourself as consciousness across 2 different avatars simultaneously of Ellie and Abby. And I don't think any game to date has been able to make a gamer or a player feel that or realize that.
Yeah, it's effective, and I think just you summarizing as well as you did kind of ties into why I like prefer the first one. Is just also I like feeling the positivity and saving and being a hero, and you're not the hero in the second one. Right. Your goal in the first one is noble. You're protecting this child and transporting them and trying to, I guess, save the world. But it's all about saving and protecting and this bonding. And the second one is, there's nothing noble about what they're doing. Everything is awful. Right. Not to make it sound bad, but like, you're doing bad things as bad people, and it's like, who's going to win out in the end?
Right. Good points. And here's our famous, clickers.
Oh, yeah, and also in a world of The Walking Dead and zombies everywhere, to put their own cool twist on the zombie formula.
Exactly.
I thought is cool, especially with a real-world existing thing like cordyceps.
Yep. I just love the noises so much. Oh, I love them so much. I just had to give you guys a little bit of the Oh, and you should see them in the making of it. Just the noises that they had to make in order to.
And how cool it was for the series to bring in those original, the people that did the performance capture from the games, they brought in to help do and recreate in the show. So we nailed it there too.
Yep. Beautiful. I mean, we are on such fire already with these first ones. All right. Red Dead Redemption 1 and Red Dead Redemption 2. So, again, I put, on this one, it's interesting. I did not put 1 and 2. I put 2. Now, I played 1 probably 10 years ago. I did not replay 1 before playing 2.
But you 100%ed it from what I remembered.
But 100%ed it. Well, again, one of the greatest, Red Dead 1's one of the greatest games of all time. But I think really what happened in this was that I chose Red Dead 2 because it basically took all of what Red Dead 1 was and it just upped the graphical fidelity and the modernity of it. And that's why that 2 is there. Although both stories are also incredible, but you chose 1. Let's have you start that off.
Yeah, I won't. This isn't knocking Red Dead 2. Like, when that game came out, I played it like it was my job for like months straight. And it was hard to not just list them both. But for me, I think it was just more like, when the first trailers for it, I'm just like, oh, it's Grand Theft Auto Cowboys.
Grand Theft Auto Cowboys,
awesome,
yeah.
As in Grand Theft Auto being a game I don't have on this top 10, but like just being like, oh, that's cool. That's a fun little side thing until they make the next Grand Theft Auto, and then playing it and falling in love with the John Marston character, who might be my favorite video game character.
Yes.
I'm not saying that Arthur Morgan is also right up there.
Right.
But like, I loved his voice actor. I remember there being a cool documentary from like Polygon or some studio that was just about the voice actor and how he got tied into it and his aspiring life to be an actor and how that didn't really turn out. And loved the character, the gunplay, kind of some, decision making, but just once again, that immersion factor of like, I'm in the Wild West. I'm riding a horse. I'm crossing to Mexico and hearing that music change for the first time. It was just like, again, I say it's just perfect, an awesome story, awesome experience. And totally. The second one being, that it's a prequel, I think it was a little tough.
Let me, before you go to the second one briefly, the first one introduced so many new things to gaming also. I don't remember the Deadeye system being a popular system in games.
Well, it was a Max Payne.
It was a Max Payne introduced
which itself was like a ripoff of The Matrix.
And so The Matrix had
so
Deadeye style.
Kind of, yeah, so that's...
But this one really made it, I think, like a core thing of the game. And the physics of it also, of the Deadeye system, and then for example, right here, you're viewing it, you're also like hunting and you're collecting because you need
awesome side activities. It's not just busy work. Yeah. They did an excellent job of not just having busy work side tasks. And kind of another staple of Rockstar is like the emergent, like random character quest line or little short story or something starts getting introduced in this, where like, in Grand Theft Auto, it's like the blip on the map, go see what this is. Red Dead kind of was the first to excellently do that, where it's some random person is yelling at you, you stop to listen, go do a little fun thing quick, and that was a
Red Dead introduced.
I don't know if they introduced it or if they just started doing it really well.
Very cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now go ahead. You were starting on the second one.
No, I think the only unfair thing that I ding the second one for is just the idea of it's similar to like Halo Reach, another game I love, where it's like, how this ends and what's going to happen to these characters. So I just kind of always have that in mind, whereas I almost wish Red Dead 2 was the first game and then Redemption ends it, because that would be another cool thing of all these awesome characters of the Dutch Vanderlyn gang. And then what happens to them. But I can't fault them for that at all. That's just personal preference. These games are both 10 out of 10s. Love them.
Mm-hmm.
I just give Marston the edge, even though Arthur Morgan is probably the better character.
So, yeah, it's cool that you say that. If I boiled this one down, that last one in Last of Us, yeah, I don't know, an emptiness of revenge, something like that, but the emotional journey of guiding a daughter or something like that, of that kind of thing. But in this one, it's something more like dealing with lawlessness, something like that.
Well, it's still tying, like, especially the second one, it's family still very much the core, because in this one, this is more found family.
Right.
And Arthur being so loyal to his found family, and as a character, you learn in his backstory that he's had a kid who's died and has been married or has had loved ones, but they're out of the picture. So he's willing to do anything and everything for this group, even as it fractures, falls apart.
Yes.
And stuff. So
that's true. So the family part of it is massive, and then there's this other weird part, which is this, essentially the formation of law. Essentially, you have the beginnings of law that, I mean, you could argue and say that the formations of law go back thousands of years and all kinds of arguments, of course.
American law.
American law. Yeah. So, law in America is, let's say, around this time.
It's just the cowboy dream of, like, open freedom versus, the kind of confining restrictions that government and that brings into that. Yes, it gives you the protection and, the social norms you need to thrive as a society, but part of the reason why people love the cowboy genre is just that time of that freedom and going out and doing it your own way. And
yep. And you have to you have to deal with that in the game, where it's like, well, how am I going to engage with you have, what's the town? It's in New Orleans, basically. In Red Dead 2.
Oh, yeah, it was a Saint Denis.
Yeah, Denis.
Sorry.
Yeah, I believe so.
We're not pros here.
But yep, Saint Denis. Right? So you have this massive already established law, let's say. And then you have you guys are basically, what is it called? Vagabonds, kind of, or what's the word when you're traveling in a nomadic kind of thing, where you're traveling in stagecoaches and that kind of thing, or with
seeking their own fame and fortune and by their own rules. Yeah.
Right. Fascinating. Being immersed in that, and then doing these gigs. Again, you're doing gigs, and these gigs are putting you into positions where you're like, okay, well, now I'm basically doing something for money just to help my lawless family kind of get by and try to thrive, but I'm also really igniting a bunch of further crap and drama between the parties. Yeah. So there's a bunch of cool stuff, like that mission where you go fully onto the those two warring families, and you start lighting up the
March on the Mansion, one of the
March
greatest
on the
missions.
Mansion. Yeah.
The Assault on Braithwaite Manor. Yeah.
Yep.
Also, kind of a theme we've had going in our games is also just a realized world. Just being in the world of Red Dead 1 or 2 is just awesome. From the music to the environments to how you interact with it. You want to be there. You want to see it.
people online always comment about, before I knew it, I was down there by the river and I was fishing and I was, for hours, I'm just fishing or I'm, hunting deer or bison or whatever, and gathering the meats and because then I'm cooking them for the healing for me to use later, or I'm selling the furs to the trapper. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
or to get new outfits in the first one.
Get new outfits. Yeah. Yeah. And, it made you feel like you were in the world and doing that. It felt great. Fantastic.
Yes. Next gen 60 FPS console release, please.
Yeah. Are Red Dead 2 30 locked?
Still 30.
It's fascinating.
I think even Series X can pump it to 4K because of the old 1X update, but yeah.
I'm so happy that I squeezed in RE4 before we did the episode, because I'm just thinking RE4 and Uncharted 2 are probably the greatest push down a hallway games.
Roller coaster rides.
Yes. Yeah, because you can't go outside of going down the hallway or the roller coaster, but the ups and downs and everything is just perfect in Uncharted 2 and RE4. But let's do the RE4. I have the remake from 2023 and you have the original from 2005.
Yeah. I mean, this is always like when you look at like RE4 is like the tying into our and stuff topic of the last episode of the NBA. It's like the Steph Curry of like video game genre in terms of how it just like changed how games are played. Shifting the, no more tank controls of Resident Evil 1 through 3. It's over the shoulder. This is that same era when you start getting like the Gears of Wars and all that. It creates like the third person shooter genre.
Right.
You can now precisely aim your shots instead of just pointing up and hoping you hit something in the previous games. Modifying weapons, upgrading. It's like it created like a new style of game while also giving you this fun roller coaster of an adventure. You're not tied into like the backstory of the previous games. It stands on its own. Right. It has these distinct acts and parts with its own unique characters. The greatest inventory system. No, it's not great, but I love it. The inventory system of the briefcases and moving things around. It's a game. It doesn't give you all the choice in the world. It has this kind of set thrill ride experience, and you get to go be a part of it. It's awesome. This is probably my number one most bought game.
Greg's probably bought this game 10 times.
I didn't own it on the GameCube when it first came out, when it was originally exclusive. I remember renting it. I'm sure many of you, first played through it and owned it on the Wii, aiming with that system.
Yeah.
And then getting it on PS3 and 360, getting on the PS4 and Xbox One, on my iPad at one point, playing the remake, which is also excellent and I love. I just had to put this one because I've beaten it and played it so many times, mm-hmm. Whereas the remake, even though I bought the remake on both Xbox and PlayStation, it's an all-timer, and everyone should get a chance to play it and see it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you got the chance to play it.
Yep. Yeah, I remember RE5 like 15 years ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but that was just such a mind-blowing experience. But you were like, don't forget to get to 4. And I didn't really get to the other ones. I finished 2 also, which is great. But the remake. But holy crap, does 4 really make you realize what a game. Again, I keep trying to compare RE4 to Uncharted 2 just because everything is so precise. Everything is just that exact little hidden thing that you have to do in order to get that little additional gemstone to sell so that you can upgrade your gun so that you can more easily beat the boss at the end of the chapter or whatever. Everything is so kind of architected where there's nothing is out of place and everything is
like it used to be that linear games was like a negative term. Everything used to be like open world and big, and these are examples of like linear games at their best. Like when an expert studio can do it, sometimes there's nothing better than an awesome linear game.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what this one is. I love the craftiness of this one. Everything is very much like do it your way also. It's hyperlinear, but it's do it your way. You can do it with mostly whatever guns, whatever tactics you want. Some people play it on the hardest difficulties, which requires you to basically use almost as little ammunition as possible.
Yep, use that knife.
Yep, yeah. Look at that.
And your wrestling moves.
Yeah. Also, even the story itself,
it's like the best 80s action movie.
Story,
it's like, this isn't like Oscar winning, this is like a Schwarzenegger's like the main actor, like saying one-liners, looking cool. It's aware that it's not trying to, be Shakespeare. Yeah. Like, right. It's fun, it's campy. It can still scare you, and that's a big thing of how they kind of went away from that in the games following until their kind of reboot with 7. But like, it's just fun. It's a thrill ride. It's great.
Yep. Yeah, I like your description of that. It's not like trying to win an Oscar for performance. It's more like it knows its aisle.
Yes, it's tongue-in-cheek. It's, yeah.
Yep. And even the story, like the story itself and the chapters that Capcom puts you through.
It also like kind of saves the like back in older gens of games, if you had to have a companion that you had to keep alive,
right,
was the worst thing in the world. And although Ashley might be one of the more annoying characters, thankfully the remake did better.
Yep.
With her, like, you don't feel like, oh, I'm caring for this person all the time, and like, I remember being such a breath of fresh air when it's like, oh, she can just follow her,
Right.
But that's more nitpicky. They made it fun.
Yep. Yeah, again, each one of those chapters just had its own distinct and unique, like, I love the aesthetics of the environments for those chapters. I think it
makes you really excited to see what comes next.
Yep.
What's the next monster? What's the next environment?
This was so epic. Like, you knew right away when you got into this section, you were like, dude, that noise from behind that gate, I'm for sure going to fight that thing.
Still, every time I think of that arena, I just think of, hey, it's that dog.
Yeah.
You have that choice in the beginning of the game if you free that dog or not.
Exactly. I love that. Those tie-ins are great.
Elegante. Awesome fight.
Yep. All right. Content to move on, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Now we are on our FromSoft games. So we have Bloodborne, we have Elden Ring. I know an honorable mention for both of us was also Dark Souls 3, but we're going to talk about these two.
Yeah, we this is kind of the newest genre or big thing. It's sadly this is the newest game on my list. On my top 10 list.
Is this the newest game on your list?
This came out in 2015? But
this is the newest game on your list, yeah.
But yeah. I've played like all the Souls games and Elden Ring, and I've beaten all of them except for Sekiro. Still on the to-do list. But yeah, something about Bloodborne, it's kind of like, it's almost like what if FromSoft is Resident Evil. You're like getting into kind of like a horror theme, the cool gothic horror vibe.
Yep.
Going from like old school gothic horror transitioning into cosmic horror by the end of it, and all the big ideas and themes with that fun, gameplay. Like Bloodborne is just another one of those kind of perfect games in my eyes, where it just nails the vibe. It's fun to play, it's cool to look at, and you just kind of it leaves you wanting more. You want to see again what's next. It continues the FromSoft awesome DLC trend, in which sometimes the best parts of their games are the DLC that they release after.
Yep.
Just kind of excellent in every way, and I love all the other Dark Souls games, but something about Bloodborne just keeps me bringing back.
Yep. There's a lot of little things like the system where when you get hurt that you have the ability to make a strike to get your health back.
To get that health back system's awesome.
Health back system.
Yeah.
Yep.
I forgot whatever they called it, but yeah.
Exactly. So then that puts you more in the aggressive tempo.
Yeah, and it's also cool because like playing Bloodborne will influence how you play Dark Souls games, because first Dark Souls game it was Dark Souls 1. I'm the typical wearing armor, got a shield, block, hit. And then once you play Bloodborne, where you kind of get that joke of a shield early on in the game that doesn't do anything, and it's like, no, you need to dodge, you need to counterattack, you need to look for patterns, you need to be aggressive, because the longer a fight goes out, the worse off you're probably going to be. And then you go back and play the Dark Souls, and it's like, oh, this might have been the way to play the whole time. So,
right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, boss fight.
And I love, like, this list makes it seem like I love, like, these narrative linear things. But I do think, a perfectly executed linear game or more linear game is awesome. And open worlds, I love them. I run around them. But it's like I kind of shoot all my shot in one go whenever I have some big open game like a Fallout or Grand Theft Auto or, something. I do everything in that one big playthrough, and then I'm kind of content, like Elden Ring. And whereas a game like this, like I was telling you before the stream, I can play Elden Ring one time, and the time it takes me to beat Elden Ring, I can beat Bloodborne 5 times and experience all of it and try a different run and this. And it's, again, that kind of replayability of the whole game. I love it.
Yeah, it seeds you a, okay, if you're going to be waking up, this is a very classic FromSoft formula, is that, you're waking up and it's like, how do you get out of this nightmare, basically? And, there's a similar thread between this and Dark Souls 3, and even in Elden Ring to some extent too, which is basically, here you are basically in a dungeon of your own nightmaric reflections, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to make the player face their own nightmaric reflections and then go through again this very difficult, there's no difficulty levels. Everything is about you having to make a trade-off all the time, which is, should I keep going or should I cycle back to the last bonfire or
just the genius bonfire system.
The genius bonfire system is introduced in the FromSoft genre because it's basically you're taking like circles through the dungeon. If you go too far, what you'll do is you'll lose tens of thousands of in-game currency, souls or whatever it is.
Your experience / money, because it's the same thing, money. Yeah.
So then you're always negotiating with yourself, should I go further and sacrifice the risk? And then if you do, you sometimes find another bonfire point. Or lantern in
or shortcut. Or
a shortcut, right? Yep. So huge payoffs if you go, but huge if you lose all that. So that system's fascinating too, because if you go and run back to the bonfire and you spend your XP and whatnot, everything will repopulate back in the dungeon. So it'll respawn.
But that is a point that I'm glad you bring that up too, because you haven't gotten the chance to play Dark Souls 1 or 2?
I started
just because when you talk about like the idea of the run back was kind of legendary in those early games because they were not very generous on where they placed those. So when you had to make that run back to where you died, it was like playing a football game and you're a running back and you're just trying to hold the controller in that weird claw position so you can sprint and move the camera at the same time and weave through everything to get back to where you were. Whereas the modern games, especially Elden Ring with like the Shrines of America and all that, you don't really have to worry about that. And I kind of wish they would bring back the idea of the tough run back, whether it be maybe put it just in their optional side dungeons like the Halig tree in Elden Ring, instead of, it's already a super uber hard area. Let's put awesome, terrible run backs, which there are some in that part there. Whereas the storyline, maybe we can push them a little further, but yeah.
Yeah, the two words for, Bloodborne and Elden Ring, something like, I guess, wake up. I don't know, that's part of it. A dungeon master is another good.
I was going to just say curse words.
What were you going to
just be like, God damn it.
Yeah, the two words. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you want to keep going.
Yeah. True. And that's another beautiful thing is there's a whole big gaming community online that says that their ability to persevere through the FromSoft games has actually made them persevere through their own forms of depression or anxiety or life circumstances or whatever. They've been able to go through those more difficult things in life because they could not give up.
Yeah, the sense of accomplishment you get, like you have to earn it in the FromSoft games. It's not just I'm going to go kill this rat 500 million times in power level and in another RPG, it's like, no, you got to go fight that boss. Yep. You got to go win. You have to try, and you have to beat your head against a wall and die a million times.
Yes. Yes. A pattern mastery was another good way of describing this, like algorithm mastery or pattern mastery, because whenever you're getting to these, this is another genre of game that introduced many bosses, difficult, large bosses along the path that you would die at a dozen times before beating it. So you would have to going into the boss would be equivalent to saying, I am going to die a dozen times and have to do these run backs to the bosses, but what's going to happen? So you want to go in with no currency so you don't keep losing that, but
it's the coward's way.
Yeah. Go in with 100K. Yeah. But when you go in there, you're basically studying the algorithms of the boss, the patterns of the boss, because the boss is going to have a certain move set. It's going to, if you're close, if you're close, then you can get away. Elden Ring introduced the jumping function, so then you could jump to avoid boss attacks also. But you're basically learning how to dance with that boss. And then right when the fascinating thing is you get a little opening. You have to dodge roll, just walk out of the attack, that kind of thing. And then you get go under its legs or whatever. Then you get a tiny opening for 2 seconds. And that's when you go attack. And you can't go over, because if you attack that fourth time, that's the exact time that the boss turns around and whaps you and you lose half your health. So it's the fascinating thing of you got to take what you can get and then go back to dodging their algorithms.
Yeah, you got to be... It's kind of the big opposite gameplay-wise of like a Baldur's Gate or KOTOR. Like, you're in the moment. You can't pause and what's my next move going to be in this? It's like, yeah, you lose that freedom, but it forces you to be fully present.
Yep.
How do I beat this? This is my focus. And, again, you got to earn it. So, kudos to those guys for really having just a run of bangers.
Formula sacred, run of bangers.
Yeah, we don't have
not a single FromSoft game missed the mark.
There's not a Call of Duty Ghosts in this bunch.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not to tease them. Modern Warfare 3 remastered, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But it's if Dark Souls 2 is your worst game, you're doing pretty good.
I could say the same thing. I think about
even
Naughty
though people
Dog.
say it's their favorite.
Naughty Dog, not a single miss.
Yeah, maybe the current
from Crash Bandicoot through Last of Us and
Jack and Daxter.
And Jak and Daxter, and exactly, Jak and Daxter was such a huge hit. Nailed it. Loved all of them. Then you get Last of Us, and then you get potentially this intergalactic, who knows, space heretic game. But it's rare that a studio comes out like FromSoft. And FromSoft also has a formula, except Night Rain. Night Rain is really the only game that's deviated from the formula in a way, because it now went... It still has a lot of the formula, but it went multiplayer.
That's fair. Not discounting Armored Core.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Going back to the oldies there.
And I love how in Bloodborne it's so much, and even in Dark Souls 3, in Elden Ring 2, I just see a very beautiful thread of let me get the...
Well, these games are also... These games are events. Like, and they've just done such a good job of having, like, quality releases that you just kind of trust it's going to be awesome.
Give me the founder's name again. No, not the founder. FromSoft. There it is. Hidetaka Miyazaki.
I was gonna say Mike Wazowski from the Zanny videos. Nice try, Michael Saki.
Yeah. Nice try.
Mike Wazowski.
Yeah, Wazowski. But yeah, overall, Miyazaki and FromSoft in general, I just think they put you into the position of what are you going to do when you're facing a dungeon of demons. And it's very much like they're done. It's not like, although some of them are flowery demons, very few, but it's beautiful because you have to wake up out of the dungeon of your own demons. And I just think that theme that keeps coming in the FromSoft genre, I think that's I think it's their own lane. Nobody else is really doing that as good as they are. I love that about it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pull up a little bit of Elden Ring also.
Well, Elden Ring is just their magnum opus. This is just... What if we Breath of the Wild Dark Souls?
Perfectly said.
And
right.
You don't think it's going to go together, and boy, they killed it.
What if we Breath of the Wild Dark Souls? Exactly.
Like, the bigger question is, where do you go from here? And, we already see Night Rain. It's, it's still Elden Ring. But I can't imagine, like, what's next. Like, what's this Switch 2 game that they're making that looks like Bloodborne? Are they going to go back smaller scale scope? I mean, you got Alex Garland making an Elden Ring movie. Like, no one would have thought this would have branched out and become as big as it was, but just masterpiece of a game. Not to steal your thunder. It's on your list. You talked.
Spot on. I mean, everything you're saying, Breath of the Wild, Dark Souls is perfectly summarized. Turning it open world, I think, is another just so fascinating because you're so used to the FromSoft formula being, I'm in a dungeon and the best thing that I'm going to get is another lantern or another bonfire or a shortcut or whatever it is. And now it's like you get your horse and you're going all over the first chapter of the open world, because it does kind of open up into the mid-game chapter and then the late-game chapter, which incorporate different parts of the open world map, because the enemies there, you can go there, but you will die right away. Some of them you can't even go to those areas. The Erd Tree is the most beautiful thing, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in a video game. There you go. We got our little dings.
Stand up.
Right here. There's the elevator up, and this is right at the beginning of the game. I mean,
I prefer the fallen beauty of the Halig tree.
But you get this right when you walk out the door, and it's just like, that's it, right there. There's your
Sorry, I'm remembering those videos you showed me of what if Ubisoft made Elden Ring. So
it just pauses.
I'm waiting for all the pauses and pop-ups.
With a transaction. Please pay $10 to level
DLC.
up. Yeah.
Objective marker this way. Here's how to swing.
Well, this is impressive. I mean, this is a playthrough this is a whole playthrough in 15 hours. I mean, once you get really good. But let me take you to when you get to the castle.
You have to be more specific.
Right, because there's many. That's a good point. This one.
Oh, the capital.
The capital. Yep, Lindell, the royal capital. So, here's, again, what I would argue is, some of the most beautiful. Let me get you just directly to the tree. And just pull that up. Like, it's so sacred. I mean, this one symbol, I feel like, communicates so much of consciousness, metaphysics, roots and fruits.
See, I get a big kind of creep factor from it because it reminds me of reading and seeing the Stephen King's It movies, and that kind of weird shade of yellow gold reminds me of like the Deadlights. So every time I see it, it's almost more like this creepy, all-powerful, mysterious. Like, yeah, people worship it, but should they be? And I get the heebie-jeebies from it.
This is exactly it. Yeah, it's not like the symbol itself, because this also is addressed in the game, is to become another thing to worship. Rather, it's more like, what will you do once you learn what you are, let's say. Something like that. The point of these games and the point of many of the major religious traditions around Earth is all about, once you realize what you are in that mystical, deep, divine sense, being everybody as this divine universe, as God's dream, now what? So the whole point of the game is to put you in the shoes of now what? How do you be? How do you act? How would you order a world from this new place? And so then it's not about obsessing over the symbol to then have that turn into another point of identity or something like that. It's more about it helping you use it as a gateway. That's what Christ is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a gateway to God, through transfiguration, right? Through ego crucifixion, or however you want to say that. And I think the tree represents that same thing, and it can be totally taken and warped, though. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and it is a theme of all every FromSoft game in this run that they're on, is in every game, with the exception of Armored Core, is that you're like in this almost post-apocalyptic, like you're not in the cities of its heyday. Things are falling apart. They're rotting. Things are going crazy. Like these things that were once gods are now the things causing the destruction, and they didn't provide all that grace, and they didn't save everyone. So it's from Bloodborne to the Dark Souls. It's things rotting, falling apart. Yes. The world is ending. You finding your way against that. Yes. And it's just kind of a cool thing, and it gives its own kind of beauty in that, like you're mentioning with the tree. Every game has, kind of that beautiful moment of seeing something or finally getting a way to relax in this big oppressive environment. And they do. It's a really cool thing they do. Yeah.
Positioning the hero in a formula that makes them overcome a lot of adversity in a collapsing universe, to then also make a very difficult decision about how they would like that universe to look through their choices. I love that. That's actually probably one of the main cores of our list so far, is that exact thing, is that the more that the gamer or the more that the game development company puts the gamer, tells a really good story and puts the gamer in the role of having to make difficult decisions that then create the most amount of impact on the world that they're immersed in. Something like that is a cool part of the formula of a lot of these games.
On that note, let's go to a game that doesn't have any of those themes.
Yeah, totally.
And the kind of the peak of my teen years in Halo 3 and kind of this culminating story of the epic Halo games. It's more hero fantasy. You're playing as the Master Chief, the last of the Spartan 2s. Bigger, faster, stronger. One man save the world by himself. Just kind of the epic gameplay meets kind of a cool storyline that made sense for the most part without having to read all the books like the other games got into. I just remember this being such an event that like movie companies were suing Bungie because their movies weren't getting the money they thought they would get because Halo came out. Or like being in this, like I said, like lining up at malls to get Halo when it came out. I remember being devastated that I had to go to school and go to football practice, and my brother and mom had to go pick up the Halo 3 Legendary Edition that we still have the Master Chief helmet of today, sitting in my room. Like just everyone playing it, playing with all the buddies on the football team online together. I missed out online because we didn't get Ethernet and Wi-Fi until, late in the 360 era. So when these came out, all I did is just play this story mode and couch co-op and local multiplayer. And then all of a sudden being able to play against people all around the world in these huge maps, see them the way they're supposed to be. Playing a shooting game or driving is fun. I mean, there's driving games where driving isn't fun still that come out. And it's like, Halo guys did it. Why can't you figure it out? Just awesome. Just forever a love for this. And again, I had to pick from all the Halos, love them all, even the ones that aren't so hot. But Halo 3 is kind of probably my perfect mixture of story, the fun of playing through the levels, playing with friends, the online multiplayer experience. Just all that kind of in one.
Yeah, Halo is on the honorable mentions of mine later. There's just nothing that took over like Halo. Halo and Call of Duty were basically the only two things that people were doing our age in 2007 or 8.
Yeah.
It was like, that's all we were doing. And all of our free time was like, how do we find ways to hang out so that we can play these games for like 8 straight hours.
Yeah.
It's
like, what else are you going to do? Oh, we'll just play Halo.
Yeah.
Or we'll just do this.
And it was so perfect because then you would go and you would play against one another online, or even when you would do LAN parties or whatever. But then the whole thing would be the next day at school too. You would talk about, dude, remember when that happened?
The bragging rights. Yeah.
Yeah. And also you're right. This story of Master Chief, which, I want to learn more about, but it sounds like it's one of those epics that can't.
Yeah, it's just more of a classic, old school, epic heroes. Well, it's not really growing as a hero, but it's just, you're this all-powerful guy. You save the world. You're the Doom guy.
You're the Doom guy.
In Halo, so
exactly. Yeah. Actually, it makes sense now that I think about it. The Doom guy is kind of modeled after Master Chief in a way.
Well, Doom was much earlier than.
Well,
maybe modern iteration of Doom guy.
Of Doom guy.
The Slayer.
The Slayer.
But yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
those guys would be BFFs.
Yeah, BFFs. And you specifically chose Halo 3 because you thought
3, it's the ending of the original trilogy. It was a next gen game at the time, being the first 2 Halos being on the original Xbox. So it's 360 now. Yeah. So just seeing how gorgeous it was, Xbox Live becoming what it was and changing how people play console games. Just the big open levels not being as narrow and linear as Halo 2. So here's me going into the more open aspect for Halo 3. These just big set pieces. Arguably the most famous video game soundtrack and music from Marty O'Donnell to ever exist. My mom sings in a choir for our state, and they sang Halo music. So it's like, just kind of epic and everywhere, and it'd be cool to see it kind of get back to
arguably
its roots.
The most noticeable soundtrack in all of video games, maybe.
It's like original, yeah.
I don't want to get us into copyright trouble, but
from the Gregorian chants and just kind of perfect music for old meets new. And
so cool. I love it. The Danish National Symphony Orchestra. Like it's like at that level. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's so cool. Okay, so nice. Finally we're on something that's a little different. Yeah. So we have real-time strategy, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3 also. So
and I brought this is the most foreign to me of anything because I grew up without a gaming PC. Everything was console. So this is almost a genre entirely I missed and didn't understand the scope of. Even you tell me about all the things. Oh, yeah, this is where Dota came from, or this, or custom game modes. It's like, I thought those were all recent things. It's like, no, that's been happening since we were little.
Right. Whatever Warcraft and StarCraft did with this genre, so an RTS game, a real-time strategy game. Age of Empires, of course. Can't forget Age of Empires. I almost committed a sin there. I mean, it's up there. Like, these games are just impossible to speak about how just all-encompassing they are of your attention when you get to play them. In Age of Empires, StarCraft, Warcraft, they're all consuming because it's like it's a form of. Let me see if I can pull this up for you. In real-time strategy, I'll just read. Let me just read this. Okay. Right. So it doesn't progress incrementally in turns, but it allows all players to play simultaneously in real time versus turn-based ones. And, you're participating by structuring. Like, this is so fascinating. There's these things called build orders. This is one of the best ways. I'll just try to describe it raw. So here you are, right? This is back in 1998, I think. You're given a great hall, and you're given peasants or peons, and then they have to go and mine gold or lumber or whatever, and you have a barracks and a blacksmith and a lumber mill and blah, blah, blah. But the point is that you, in real time, have to make negotiations, because this is what Warcraft 2 looks like, but then if I pull up what Warcraft 3 looks like, right? So this is your more, 6 years later or something like that. This is when PCs became more advanced. And if you pull up, StarCraft 2 became a whole explosion of esports through StarCraft 2, Dota, which was a custom. This also introduced, custom maps was massive. You would make, you would have a map editor. So not only is this whole thing with build orders, because you have to know, okay, if I'm going to build this type of unit, I'm going to be trying to counter their type of unit, or I want to go and make a sneak drop on that enemy when they're not aware of it, because then they haven't built the countering unit yet. Once they start building the countering unit, then you try to make a different unit and a different build and a different play style. So everything's about build orders, basically. And then trying to, you're trying to do, you're trying to micro your army while macroing your base, right? So meaning here you are doing like macro level behaviors, like setting up your wood chopping and your gold mining. But then here you are doing micro behaviors where you send like, look at this. So now here's your microing your army. So you have to have your hero further back so they don't die, because your opponent tries to snipe your hero to set you back, right? And try to attack you then. So you have to be balancing these things. And then you have the Age of Empires version, which is, again, all about build orders, the same style thing. StarCraft's the same style thing. But it puts you into this position of resource management also, where you have to be very particular about where you're investing your resources. It's very fascinating, and this game has to obviously be played with a mouse and a keyboard, because there's a tremendous amount of actions per minute that you have to take, APM, with hotkeying things. So you would have, your town hall is your hotkey number 1, because when you press 1, you want to press your build unit for your peons or peasants or whatever. And then your hotkey number 2 is like your barracks or something like that to build or pump out, or your stables to pump out units. Your hotkey number 3 is usually a portion of your army. It might be your whole army. It might be just your paladins or your healers or your mages to cast the spells, or your footmen to not go too far into opposing territory and get wiped out. Hotkey number 4 is probably your hero and your hero spells. So there's so much to do all at the same time. And that's what really makes a RTS an RTS, and what makes it so fascinating. All of these things are trying to be juggled. You see the APMs of esports athletes in the 300s actions per minute, 300 actions per minute. Crazy. Completely different than...
Yeah, definitely respect to people who can play I just missed the boat. It's kind of like fighting games. It's one of those things I wish I could do and be good at, and just, it's like trying to read War and Peace in Russian right now. I just can't do it. It's a foreign language.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. It kind of turns into a foreign language, but you and I had some time when we were doing a little bit of StarCraft 2 online stuff together, which was fun, but it was mostly, you building units and sending them to me to go and control and fight the 2-on-2s.
Yes.
Yeah. But that was, it does become like a language, because when somebody starts talking to me about certain games that I haven't played, it is like a language.
It's its own skill, its own vocabulary. Its own,
Yep, all of that. Yeah, and just getting the opportunity to make custom maps, and then for them to get upvoted, and then for more people to take them and iterate on them like a community. I think that aspect was so fascinating 25 years ago. And now we're onto Uncharted 2, which arguably is one of the games that we probably call a perfect game most often when we talk. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And this is another one where we have shared, we love the series. Really love Uncharted 4. 3 I remember not
Same.
liking at the moment, and now when I replayed it in the last collection, I was like, this is awesome. I remember my brother had the PS3. He had Uncharted 1. I just thought, oh, that's a cool looking Indiana Jones ripoff or Tomb Raider ripoff, and it's like a whatever. And then I just remember like the blow up of Uncharted 2 coming out and subscribing to different gaming magazines, and it's just 10, 10, 10, 10, perfect. And just, it's like, how could this be? And you play through it, and it's just from the cinematography to the voice acting to just the fun gameplay. Like, it's, again, we talked about a lot in the Resident Evil 4. It's a roller coaster ride.
Yes.
It's linear, yes, but it's making you experience all these awesome stuff. And then it continues and branches out and to the further games, and it also has its own movie and other stuff, which is not great, but just, it's one of those, like, I'm playing a game that's better than a movie. And you can make arguments there haven't really been, this is the best Indiana Jones game, even though we just had an awesome Indiana Jones game come out this year. Which maybe people now are like, well, it's an Uncharted game. No, that's terrible equivalency. But it's like, this is one of the first times I remember being like, I'm playing a movie.
Yes.
And this is better than movies right now.
Yes. Well said. I mean, the platforming, amazing. Not there for no reason, but there to really accentuate the cool adventure through the game. The multicultural adventure.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so you're going across the world to different sacred sites. Like, everything seems so, like, sacred. Like, you have some Islamic architecture looking here. Then later on, you have this...
You're in Nepal. And you're with the...
Yeah.
All those... Yeah, it's to the jungles. To
jungles like this, yep.
It's... World Traveler. Awesome set pieces. The train set piece.
The train set piece.
Is still incredible.
Yep.
It's a game you play and hours have passed by and you didn't know it.
Yep.
I think I beat this game renting it, and then I still bought it after beating it.
The the system of having where you're aiming and just being able to quick throw a nade where you're aiming, just simple things like that, I just found to be like, wow, that's nice.
I would also argue this probably has to, and this is just a thought without having not done any research or anything, maybe the greatest glow up for a sequel of a video game ever.
Glow up?
Like, with how much better it is than the first game. Oh, it is insane. Because the first game, you kind of, you got the characters, the same voice actors. It's clunky to play, even when you play the remastered kind of the Nathan Drake collection. It's still like, boy, I can't wait till I get done with this one. And then just getting into 2, and it's like, it still holds up. It's still awesome. Like, I don't know. I might have to if we ever come up with a list later on of greatest sequels ever. Like, this is just so much better in every way than its predecessor. It's incredible.
Right. Glow up. Yep. You're doing the puzzles in the game are also fun puzzles that make you, kind of recognize the sacred. I love those puzzles. They're very, you recognizing why, treasure can be so sought after. Like, I like how in the Uncharted series over and over again in 1, especially in, I think, 1 and 2, and then in 4 really makes it, hits the nail on the home with head, hits the nail on the head with it, home, hits the nail on the head, home with it. But the degree to which treasure is turned into something that we go psychotic over and will sacrifice and kill and everything for it. I think Naughty Dog does a great job at being like, what are you really sacrificing for this treasure? And what's the end of when you get it? what are you going to turn into? I think that's amazing. That's a constant through it. And Uncharted 4 really basically took the mechanics. I mean, it turned, like, you can see the Last of Us mechanics in the middle between 1 and 2. Uncharted 4 kind of took the mechanics that ended up being in Last of Us 2 and made those mechanics. It matured 2 into 4, and you can feel it more. Yeah.
Also solves, the age-old every game is better when you add a grappling hook with 4.
When you add a grappling hook.
I think the big thing why we have 2 on over 4 is just how well it still holds up. It's so ahead of what it was of other games in the genre at the time.
Yep.
And it just made, an incredible studio get better as they progressed. But yeah, it was just such a game changer.
So mind blowing about how this. How does it still hold up? Yeah.
And where's Uncharted 5?
We'll see. Gosh, what an amazing game. Okay. We differentiated on this one a little bit. We got the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion.
Going back into our RPG-ness phase.
Which just got a remaster, which is fascinating.
Yeah, which I originally had like Skyrim, but Skyrim's a game where, yes, I recognize that Skyrim's incredible and is the game I bought the second most times in my life across various platforms. Yeah. But with Oblivion, this is just the nostalgia of, like, I just bought a Xbox 360 back when it came out. I could only afford one game to play. Actually, technically, my brother, I bought the console. He had to pick a game, and we had all these reviews and all this stuff. Oblivion is what's great. We got it immediately, went home, set up the Xbox, put in Halo 2, and just played Halo 2, and just let this game sit because it's like, what is this? And then I remember we both kind of tried to play it. You're in the dungeon. It's cool. Hearing Patrick Stewart talk to you. But it's like, I don't know what this is. Go back, play Halo 2. And then we give it another shot, and all of a sudden it's like, this is life right now. My brother and both of us just running around, hearing that awesome music, the leveling up, the jankiness. Even back then it was janky, and it's beautiful how the janky stuff still holds up in the remaster here. But just this idea of, like, epic storyline. This is like Western RPGs at its best, of like you playing, you making decisions, conversing, joining the different guilds, having that freedom, how you mold your guy.
Right.
I don't know, I'm rambling too much without specific thoughts, but it was just another one of those, you're in this world, you just want to be in it and do everything that you can, see everything that you can. It was just awesome, and as the remaster has shown, it's still awesome. Mm-hmm. So I loved it, and then we get the big boom of these games of, all right, Oblivion, then we have Fallout getting all that love from Bethesda, and now you have the Fallout and Elder Scrolls games competing with one another and maybe kind of outpacing what they can do with the current run of games. But it's still a big event, still a huge thing to see what Todd Howard's got next for us. Yep. And hoping that they can push the genre and the console industry forward, see if they can get back to that.
Yeah, this is a good one you just got a remastered. So if you can go and play that. I started the old one before the remastered came out, and that was another one that felt a lot like Coder, and I was like, I really want a remaster of this, and boom. That was very spontaneous when it was released, right? There
are lots of rumors, and then basically within a week, it's kind of everything being finalized. And
so cool.
They pulled the old, hey, this game comes out, boom, at this time, and if you're on Games Pass, free download.
Exactly.
So
And we have Skyrim's on our honorable mentions later, so there's a lot of similarity. This is kind of a predecessor in a way.
Yeah, it's a more streamlined game with its systems compared to Oblivion with Skyrim, and obviously Skyrim was everywhere all at once. That's just a game where I still have the nostalgia for this, whereas I played Skyrim so much for so long that I've kind of outdone myself with it. So not to say anything negative about it, but still, like, this game, I just remember this is one of those first new console, this is where we're going with games now. This is what's possible. Right.
And what you said, I love that. And what you said earlier about when you and Chris were like, let's go back to Halo 2. What are we doing in Oblivion? I think that's a great way to frame what happens when you get exposed, especially when you're young, to games that you don't exactly get on the first go and doesn't exactly make full sense. I mean, and even to some extent, I told you, like 15 years ago, I would have picked up Mass Effect and I wouldn't have exactly, I don't think, fully gotten the profundity of it. Whereas now, after going into spirituality and consciousness and metaphysics more and all this stuff, nowadays Mass Effect just makes like crystal clear sense of why it's so awesome. Same thing I would say is true about physics, cosmology, etc. I would say is true about games like Oblivion or Skyrim. I think when you're younger, I think it's a little bit more, you have a higher tendency to want to play Fortnite. There's something about just playing Fortnite with your teenage friends that has a stronger draw than for you to get into this.
This is personal. Yeah. Like this is your own experience. Like what you did in your world, your choices, how you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's much more personal.
It's maturing into this making sense, let's say. So Oblivion, then we have Cyberpunk 2077, which we've both finished
in the last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm surprised that that Greg initially was telling me that he was going to have Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, but he took CD Projekt Red off of his.
I couldn't decide between the two of them, so I omitted both.
Yeah. Logic makes sense.
Yeah. It was like when I was 10, my dad said I could play hockey, and my mom said I could do karate, and then I turned 10, and I didn't do either of them. Didn't do either,
yeah. There you go.
Sorry.
There's the analogy.
Sorry, Poland.
Yeah. So now, why, and again, we're talking about Cyberpunk not in 2020, but we're talking about the 2020.
The game at its best.
The game at its best after it had been patched up and everything. So wow, it's a long playthrough. I was just looking. It's like this is a one day, right? 1 day, 7 hours. So 24 plus 7, 31 hour video. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so what about this game? Okay, well, we can all agree that the art style alone is mind-blowing. It's nothing's like it. There's nothing like it. It's art style. Nothing's like it. So, you get fast forwarded 50 years of humanity and you're like, well, technically if oligarchy gets way the fuck out of control and social inequality gets way the fuck out of control and neurotechnology gets put everywhere and people have the option to either, do it or not, or be poor and can't afford it or can. And then you have these outlaws living outside of the megapolis, whatever. It's like, this is actually a possibility on this. So it's almost like you're fast forwarding certain civilizational choices 50 years and you're like, well, we could live in a kind of screwed up dystopia like this if we if
Yeah.
you so choose so.
The vibes I got is one of my favorite movies is Blade Runner, which is very much a similar kind of future that we're already surpassing timeline wise. But yeah, just that idea of like the mega city and the ads everywhere and like the fallen gritty side of the future instead of like the shiny bright nice Star Wars future. It's like, what happens if this is all messed up? And seeing that, and just again, this could have just been a walk around Night City game and just see the city, and it would have been worth the price of admission, let alone
just walk and drive around Night City, let alone the missions and the
especially the Phantom Liberty DLC, which was my favorite part of it, and just the smaller, more concise story, not discounting Jackie, our guy. But like just games at their best when Cyberpunk is hitting.
Yeah, and so you get this incredible art style, and then you also get the ability to choose how you want to approach the game in terms of what were those things called that we were using? The
Mantis
blades. Yeah. There's like, you can choose to go Mantis blades, or you can become a hacker and hack everything.
Well, also just like on your note of choices of like in terms of like dictating story and quests and stuff, like it also does a really great job of not having a clear-cut good or bad side too.
Yes.
And so it feels much more kind of real and lived in. Like, as much as I love KOTOR, and I'll still say it's my favorite of those kinds of games, it's straight up, is this good or is this bad? And then the sequel tried to like get into more of that gray area, and games like Baldur's Gate don't necessarily say good or bad, but like in this game everything's grimy. It's
it's very
what
grimy.
Are you gonna choose? What are you gonna like?
Very
all right, go for it. Let's see how it goes.
Yep, and I love the end game decisions in this are very powerful, because it's like, okay, do you think it's possible to help heal the megalomaniacal enterprise that is Night City, or are you going to blow it all up, or are you going to escape with the nomads? Are you going to try to upload your mind and consciousness and then try to port it into another body in the future? There's a lot of great choices that have to be made, and a lot of great ways to think about wealth inequality, about how to, again, find a way to design or architect a city or a civilization that has more equity or more love or more abundance for everybody, or just see that is this a common pattern of human behavior and endeavor that can never be overwritten, no matter how much God tries to, let's say, something like that. It does a good job at making that I think it's incredible in that way. I think that bringing that home, I think, is this game. I think it brings it home, and it makes you really kind of get that.
I also like to give a shout out to the idea of like having all these deep systems and like thoughts in the world and art, but it's also just flat out fun to play.
Very fun to play. Yep.
For like a looter shooter kind of style where you're picking things up and inventory management, but it controls like a Call of Duty, or like that tight fun gameplay. You don't get that very often, because it kind of reminded me of like Borderlands is a genre game I want to get into and love, but like I just don't like the gunplay or the management or whatever. It's like, this is how I want that game to feel, like with those systems and how you play, and leveling matters and drastically changes how you play.
Yep. The skill tree in this is fascinating and diverse.
And how they updated it for the better. Like, no one was really complaining about its skill system when it came out, and then to completely throw out the clothing as armor system of the original version of the game how they made it. It's it's the style of game where in its current form, you can't wait to see what they do next.
Exactly. I can't wait. CD Projekt Red, whether Witcher 4 or whatever is coming, I love this studio.
Just take your time.
Take your time, exactly. Don't exactly, because trying to make a game equivalent to Witcher 3, take your time, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. I love this studio. This studio is, again, one of my favorite studios.
Yeah. I get it. I remember when I first got computers for like college, getting The Witcher because it looked so cool, and then it just being so out of the loop on what the heck is happening and its odd control scheme, to being pumped when The Witcher 2 came out on the 360, which just didn't fit very well, too big for consoles, and then jumping into Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk. Wow.
I think we should do Witcher 3 next, just to keep on the track, and then we'll do Legend of Zelda. So, speaking of, CD Projekt Red, and again, greatest games of all time, this game, from the second that you start playing it, where you're in, what's the training, or what's your this place called again? What's Geralt's of Rivia's castle thing called?
Oh, he's in Kaer Morhen.
Oh, Kaer Morhen. Thank you.
So I can tell if you're trying to talk about which continent we're on. It's like, it depends on which point of the game.
Was trained as a Witcher at Kaer Morhen, right? So the moment that you get into this, that you start in here, it is so much like you are at home. I don't know how to explain it. Like, right? Where is that one scene at the beginning?
We almost can't believe that this game is as old as it is, with how much it was doing.
10 years old now.
At its time. Yeah, like, it's incredible how ahead of its time it was.
This, right? Let me get there, right? Yeah, in here. I just love this so much. This in here just makes me, it just felt like, I don't know what it was about when you're first up here and you're just like looking inside and you see that hot bath that you take your baths in, and that there's all these Witcher, the Witcher universe and the Witcher books and the Witcher team, and then you go downstairs and you just resonate so much with yourself as Geralt.
That's another unique bit, is as much as we've talked about loving like these RPGs and choices and decisions, it's unique that as good as this game is you're a set character with a history.
Yes,
you're not Lady Geralt or Guy Geralt.
This is not Baldur's Gate 3 where you can spend a whole day making a character.
You're playing as a character, but you still feel as much freedom as if you're designing every little bit of him head to toe and their backstory in this. Right. Like, it still feels as open and free. Even though it's not.
Because you can play how many different magical combinations. I mean, there's so many different ways to play with your Agni, or with your...
Yeah, you're going to be sign related, or you're going to go with a sword. Yeah.
And I mean, this is also so adorable because now you're taking on who's, Ciri is basically this... to some extent, I can say it's an equivalent of Geralt and Ciri are kind of like Joel and Ellie to some extent. And I think there's so much bonding that happens when you play a game like that. There's a huge emotional investment. Now it's like Witcher 4, you're taking on Ciri, just like in Last of Us 2, you took on Ellie.
Geralt, stay away from golf clubs.
Love this. This game is just, you're getting out here. You have a different kind of, you have steel and
but also you
silver for monsters.
You feel in this one, I think, more like what a Witcher is than in the previous games, like taking on the contracts and going out and doing monster hunting, doing like those little things without being too system and menu management. Like,
right.
Yeah, like I know that's a trope that people hate to hear. Playing Spider-Man, it makes you feel like Spider-Man, but like you feel like you're actually doing the Witcher stuff.
You are doing the Witcher stuff. Yeah, you're being asked to go and save village from the monster or whatever it is, and it feels fantastic. I mean, it's a mind-blowing thing that 10 years ago you had these types of relations. Yennefer, Triss, whoever you're building romance with. You have the insane cities in this game. I mean, they are like Skellige was a crazy city, but also what was the one in the main? Witcher 3 cities.
Everybody in Novigrad?
Novigrad was mind-blowing. Velen was cool too. Even I think Toussaint was in the DLC.
Still need to go through that DLC.
Yeah. Beautiful city. That's where you get your own crib again.
On the note of game like DLC peaking, awesome DLC expansions. Heart of Stone, I love that one. That's my favorite little story moment of that. I thought that was the coolest side story and the greatest villain.
Yeah.
Still.
The mirror guy.
Master Mirror. Yes.
Mirror. Yeah.
And how he shows up in the main game and you don't even know.
Right.
Yeah. He's in the first hour of the game. It's just like, who's that bald guy?
Yeah.
And he's the best villain in the game.
It's awesome DLC, and again, very philosophical, makes you think deeply about consciousness and about mirrors and about karma and about decisions and all kinds of cool things. And the depth of the choices in here and the depth of the dialoguing.
We've been playing as like a hated... Witchers aren't liked in this, they're hated. They're mutants. They're freaks, but the world also knows that they're necessary.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I know it. I gotta, you hate me, but pay me.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a little bit of heart opening that happens. I love that point that you do play as someone who is really not liked, but who's needed.
But the people in power know your importance. Yeah.
Yep. I love these play styles. Like, you can use those symbols. Signs. Thank you.
I can almost hear the la 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 la.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Can that be our theme?
Sorry. Briefly, we gotta get that.
Can we make that our intro? You can do the shout. I believe Silver for Monsters is what it's called. It's Silver for Monsters?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That is goosebumps. But then when she hits it... Sorry, just don't want to get copyright right here.
Be a little bit of build.
It's coming. Right here.
Anticipation. Yeah, it was like some band that's around pulling her in that area, and apparently they like broke up or she left it or something, because I know I went down some rabbit hole trying to see live performances of it and could only really find one.
Well, that one video of her singing it, was it this one? No.
Yeah,
it was this one.
Yeah, it's her.
Okay. So good. It just goosebumps, man. It's just goosebumps, straight up. So good. I mean, these video games that we're talking about, they have literally some of the greatest music of all time. I have a whole playlist now where I just have the tracks from these games that we've been listing. Just there's like 100 songs from these games, and I'll just play the video game original soundtracks while I'm doing mowing the lawn, going to the gym, whatever. And it's just goosebumps. They take you right back to the game, right back to the emotional investment in the universe.
And if you want no better example, that brings us to our final game on our table.
Here we go.
In The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, first 3D Zelda. This is another one where if I had to do an actual like top 10 list, this is always like a top 3 game. Usually never lower. Mm-hmm. But like I had a Super Nintendo, didn't play any of the big games on it. It was just like whatever parents found. So I missed out on A Link to the Past, which I recognize some say is the best Zelda still today, or the original on the Nintendo or NES. But like this is the first game I remember. Somehow our dad got an N64 before being on our mom's side, and this is one of the first games for it and playing it, and I couldn't get out of this darn Deku tree and going to see our favorite cousin during the holidays, and he would sit there, and every year, every time he'd come over, he would play through the entirety of Ocarina of Time, and one day just being like, one day I'll be able to beat it and do that and progress. And then I still remember pretty clearly at that time in that apartment when I finally beat the boss and progressed out of the tree and into the world in this gigantic open world, which is comical because now it's like running around a city block is how big that world really is. But at the time, you're in this giant open world going to these different dungeons, incredible music. You're literally playing music as a integral part of the game and memorizing songs and those melodies. And I apologize, I can't remember any of the directors or composers of any of this stuff, but just being able to see the dungeons, to grow up to be adult Link, to time travel and have these themes of future, the past, like a post-apocalyptic kind of setting in the future, to back then to just the, again, kind of fallen world and how do we prevent that or save it, collecting the medallions. Just peak game. Not really remastered outside of like the DS or the 3DS kind of touch up and the GameCube kind of touch up it had. But this is the one where it's like, can they just put a shiny coat of paint and leave it all the same and release it today? But it's, you just sharpen up those edges. It's still a perfect game. I've played just about every Zelda that's come out after this, but still, there's just no better combo of nostalgia and still epicness that I think Ocarina of Time matches.
What do you love most about the story?
It's tough because, it's not like a real set focused narrative. Like, it's just the idea of the classic, the hero trying to save the princess, this kind of legendary bad guy, and seeing the terrible things he's done and will do to the world, the mysteriousness like around him, kind of getting almost like Dark Souls-y, how people talk about the influence of Zelda on Dark Souls, but like the bosses that you fight being these events and seeing who am I going to fight at the end of this dungeon or temple or whatever, and what comes next and how do you beat them. It's just kind of everything all together. It's
you see Link
an incredible
grow up.
game.
Yeah,
there's adult
That's
Link.
fun.
You
Yeah.
fast forward 7 years and you play as adult Link in this much darker world because now they have this tyrant in Ganondorf in charge, and you got to figure out how to rescue the princess, save the world. By the end, you're doing dungeons that require you to complete parts as adult Link and parts as kid Link.
Right. So you can go back and forth between them. How do you do that? How do you go back and forth age-wise?
Go to the Temple of Time. Put the sword in the stone, and you go back to being a kid, pull the sword out, and the Master Sword, and become an adult.
This is another one of those that it's like, put the Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom coat of paint on this.
Yeah.
That's it. Just do that and
Yeah.
then sell 20 million copies.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And everyone kind of has probably the first Zelda game anyone beats is their favorite Zelda game, you know, with the exception of maybe
Right.
Breath of the Wild, because even people that have beaten past Zelda games recognizing how incredible that game is.
Right.
And then to just do it again in Tears of the Kingdom
Yeah.
a few years later.
We'll
But
get to that. Yeah.
but yeah, this is still like what an incredible, awesome game.
Mm.
The excitement of opening a chest,
Oh, yes.
getting a key, and then figuring out where that damn key goes.
Yeah. So
The
this,
darn water temple.
and I love how the themes from even back then have continued through, like the different areas and their
Yeah.
themes, the musics. So okay, so we did the top games of our favorite games in no particular rank order, where we had a lot of overlaps and some differences here, and we got to unpack them, share some videos with them. Now, we did have quite a bit of games that didn't make it to the top, but that we wanted to at least bring up as honorable mentions. And like Greg said, on certain days, some of these games might jump up into that top category. It just depends on the mood of the moment.
Yep.
So
I had 14 honorable mentions on my list before
I
we started this.
asked him to chop
and
it
we had
down to
edit
5.
it, and all
Yeah.
14 of those have been on the original top 10 at some point.
Right. So let's have you start us off. So we'll go back and forth on these, and a bunch of these we share also. Ratchet and Clank, you with Breath of the Wild, and Skyrim. So, but go ahead and start us off with Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, this
And
is
this
just
will be the briefer version.
yeah,
'cause we're
much shorter.
yeah,
So
honorable mentions.
but yeah, Kingdom Hearts is just one of those, like, I still remember when we got it because I had to go to piano practice and games were expensive. And so we didn't just get games randomly. Like, those are big event, holiday, birthday things. And like getting in the car after and going home and being like, look what Mom bought is Kingdom Hearts. It's a game where you
Huge,
play
yeah.
as Disney characters and Final Fantasy, which I kind of knew about, but was more excited about the Disney part of it. And then just seeing how epic those first games were. And I know there's 20 trillion other Kingdom Hearts games and titles and remasters in this, but just the nostalgia and epicness of Forrest Gumping it through the Disney universes and interacting with everyone and seeing everything with these themes of light and dark. Awesome memory.
There's your classic. See, I got pretty far, but I also didn't finish it, given, again, some of the older mechanics or visual textures to it. But in moments like this, you got Goofy and Donald with you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's adorable. I love
Yes.
it. Yeah. And the main Final Fantasy character again is
Oh, he's not a final. Sora is his own character,
Sora.
but it's also cool that it's Haley Joel Osment, the kid from The Sixth Sense, voicing him, and like a big time
Sora's
actor.
not a
and-
Final Fantasy character.
No,
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 okay.
no.
But
But
who do you play as in Final Fantasy? You look in the
you look like every
you-
Final Fantasy character.
right, I was about to
it's,
say, you
it's
look
the
just like
Square
this guy when you
Square
play-
Soft, eventually Square Enix,
yeah,
when they
okay,
merged.
okay.
But yeah, like in this, like, you'll run into like the Squall, Cloud. You'll run into Sephiroth. You'll run into Tifa. Sorry, I didn't play a lot of those original Final Fantasy. I just knew of them. But yeah, it was just cool seeing them.
Yeah.
And then continuing our trend from the last episode. I gotta take a potty break.
Oh yeah, potty break. Yeah, figured that was gonna happen at some point. I'll queue up. Yeah, I'll queue up Death Stranding. Okay, so next up, we have Death Stranding. And it's cool timing because Death Stranding 2 just came out. Neither Greg nor I have gotten to that one yet. But there are a lot of things about Death Stranding that are awesome that I want to talk about. But I'll keep it as brief as possible. All right. So I just prefaced by saying that Death Stranding 2 has come out now, and
On the beach.
Yeah, on the beach. Neither one of us has beat or started that even. But you've started Death Stranding a bunch of times but haven't finished it. I started it and I was like, what is going on? When that low roar music came on, what is it? Low roar. Oh yeah, don't be so serious. You know, this music kicks on when you're, just going down,
Making deliveries,
and it just. Don't be so serious. So it was just, it's a combination of so many things with this game. I think, even the most simple form of, making a delivery and hearing that music come on, giving you goosebumps, all the way to, Death Stranding, even the words themselves, the title of the game, I think it, I always get these Hideo
genre.
Kojima.
Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, versus
it's a new genre, Strand style game.
Right, because what you get here is you get basically a metaphysic that's woven right into the narrative of the game, the title of it. Because one way to view what consciousness is when it's absent of its individual forms of identity is a form of Death Stranding, is a form of that singularity woven or entangled with itself. And that's what the metaphysics of Death Stranding, how I interpret or see that as. And it's the same thing with the seam, right? The relationship between general relativity and quantum mechanics is like a seam in physics. And it's fascinating because that's also where the experience of consciousness is or lies as. And the beach is another seam. So there's so many little metaphysical things, right? The seam between the ocean and the land. There's so many little things like that in this game that speak to me metaphysically, and I think they're purposely baked in there like that, not overtly, but just subtly. And they're there for who has the ears to hear or for who has the eyes to see. And I love that so much. I think that's one of the most precious things about it. Or the interconnecting of the cities, right? Because there's only interconnection, and we pretend like there's separation and separate all kinds of things. But all of those things are just illusions. And I think that's amazing to have the experience of bringing on interconnected cities in this way. So cool. Could keep going on the subject, but again, it's in our honorable mention, so we'll just move on. Love it dearly. Again, deep metaphysical stuff just for who has the ears to hear, eyes to see. Hades.
All right, on to Hades. Probably like my biggest... I don't know what this is. I'll buy it, try it out. I like Greek mythology and just getting sucked into that loop. The idea of a new run. Oh, just one more run, one more try. Let's see how far I get this done. Let's try this weapon out. Let's do it. Just simple. Exactly. Play it in short bursts. Infinitely replayable. The story keeps progressing, so you don't really feel like you've lost. Just what an awesome concept of a game. Yep. Kind of making the best of what roguelike you get out of a roguelike, but marrying it with fun gameplay, still some progression. Can't wait to see what the second one does, or if it can hold up to this one. But I love it. Recommend it for everyone. Have
Yep.
it on every console I have.
Yep.
Maybe in my top 5 of games I've bought the most times. But just awesome. Love it. Figure out a way to do co-op. It'd be cool.
Right. I was thinking when you first were like, you definitely give Hades a go too. And I started playing Hades. I immediately understood what you meant by, dude, you get one little option to make some sort of a new weapon or a new style of destroying enemies or a new approach. And it's just, then you're like, I want to try that out. I want to play through with that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And it makes you change it up. You can kind of like, tilt it in a direction of like the gods and the boons you get and whatever. But I love that it makes you try out a new way. And you can just be like, well, this run is over. Let's see what I can do with this.
Yep. And it has a similar system where each run you have the choice to either invest what you've earned in that run in your next run or keep saving it, basically.
Yep.
And I think that's really great. And in the middle of the run, you'll have the choice of upgrading like one of your weapons, or you'll have to be like, no, I want to save it until I get a little bit more of it. So again, it's always that risk reward balancing that you're trying to do in the middle of your run too. I love that about it. That's what makes it interesting for me too.
But yeah, awesome, short, sweet. Whether you play it for 15 minutes or for 2 hours, you get something done. Just awesome.
Yeah, and I love that mythology. Is so good. Skyrim, we've already done a good amount of this with Oblivion when we were talking earlier, but the briefest way to say this is like, I don't know. I love having two things happening at the same time, like where you have on one arm you have your weapon and on the other arm you have your magic, and you're just constantly switching it up, and you're slaying. That first dragon that you slay is like ecstasy. You just feel so empowered.
This is the power fantasy Oblivion. You are a godlike being in this, and it's a simpler, easier game from its systems, but boy, what a power fantasy it is to run around in Fusto, rob people off the cliffs and slay dragons, and just, I mean, it's Skyrim. Anyone knows Skyrim.
I think this game and Witcher 3 are two of the top selling games of all time, along with Grand Theft Auto and a bunch of other ones. But did we do that? The top selling video games of all time? We did that, didn't we?
Tetris.
We showed that list, didn't we?
Maybe.
Minecraft. Grand Theft Auto 5, Wii Sports, Ark. Survival Evolved, Mario Kart 8, Pokemon, Red, Blue, Yellow, PUBG, Red Dead 2, 74 million. Sims, Oregon Trail, Terraria, Witcher 3, Call of Duties. There's Skyrim at 40 million or so. Yep. Yeah, tens of millions. To get into the top, you have to have 100 million copies to get into the top 3. So that's Skyrim. I think one more thing briefly about Skyrim is that you have a couple decisions that you have to make that I think are fascinating, especially in the DLCs. And I think those are, again, some of the coolest decisions in gaming, and also some of the coolest DLCs in a way in gaming too. But
and mods.
Oh my God, mod heaven.
Its own game.
Spider-Man's next.
Yeah, on to Spider-Man. Just talking about a game that's a blast to play. Like when you think of like what are the most fun games to just play, it's like Guitar Hero, Rock Band, the old like Jet Set Radio, Sunset Overdrive, Insomniac as well. But like there aren't very many games where like the art of just moving around the world is fun.
Yep.
And you can just do that in Spider-Man. Awesome story, incredible face model for PS4 Spider-Man Peter Parker until they replace it to whatever that was in the PS5 version. But it just like this is everything you want from going to go see a Marvel movie, but you get to play
it.
Yeah. And it is just awesome. So still haven't finished 2 for some reason, but 100% of it, platinumed it. One of my 2 games ever platinumed. Just don't do it. Love it.
The art of moving around the world. Yeah, that's a great way of saying it.
Yeah, like what else competes? Tony Hawk being on a skateboard.
Yeah.
Driving in GTA. With the Batman Arkham game combat system. Right. Assassin's Creed counters, yeah.
There it is. So spectacular, for sure.
Now I just want to play Spider-Man.
Yeah. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So
maybe the game of the generation last gen.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. I think the little, is this an introduction of the stamina wheel?
Yeah. It's existed in forms in previous games, but
to have it be right there, right next to the character.
Yeah.
Okay.
To build it into so much of go anywhere you see that, you can go there, you can do that. Like,
right.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, there's so much about, building your own way to finish the game, basically, to beat the game. The crafting system, the open worldness of it, the finding the towers, the towers giving you the new parts of the map.
Yeah, you filling your own map out. Just kind of genius. Instead of let's make this heavily designed map. No, you fill it out.
You fill it out.
You explore.
You explore. You get to the zone. I mean, that was such a headache. You get to the zone where you have to have that lava suit or whatever, and you just keep dying until you look up and you're like, how the hell do I get lava armor or whatever I need to get through this zone? Or you start freezing to death in the early part of the game and you're like, okay, I get it. I need to go get a sweater or whatever somewhere else.
Some hot food.
Yeah, or some hot food, right? So then you can cook your way and eat it to get through that part. And every single one of these bosses are all, once you flip the shadowy part of them, they turn into the heroes that help you beat Gandalf. No, wrong.
Yes.
Ganon.
Yes, Gandalf. Yeah, Ganondorf, yeah.
Ganondorf. Yeah.
Well, Ganondorf is the human version of the guy. Ganon. Yeah. This is a Ganon.
Gandalf is Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Yeah. Ganon.
Gandalf the Grey. Gandalf the White.
They all help you once you flip the shadowy aspect. All of them, all the mechs, they help you beat Ganon at the end. Yeah.
It's like that same kind of base formula of Zelda, but they just turned it on its head, and now other games are kind of, we talked about Elden Ring being influenced by the big giant open world that you make your maps to and explore. There's that Genshin Impact, whatever that game is. That's basically trying to copy and rip off the Breath of the Wild, that Immortals game. But yeah, it's just incredible, its own beast. And then for them to basically just do it again in Tears of the Kingdom, which you can argue even stronger, better. It's incredible what they did.
Mm-hmm.
With such limited power as the Wii U and the Switch.
Right.
I remember this got such raving reviews. I went out and bought a Wii U and this game to play it because you couldn't find a Switch. And I still have technically only beaten it on the Wii U because when I got a Switch finally, I just restarted it and just never beat the game because it's like I just want to go explore, see everything else.
Greg has shifted a bit, so I'm adjusting his camera. You're good. Yeah. So, generation defining for sure. Ratchet and Clank up your arsenal. one of our favorite childhood games.
This was, again, me trying to specifically point to one game, but I would honestly just say Ratchet and Clank games as a genre. Just love everything about them. Up Your Arsenal is just like the culmination of that PS2 trilogy in terms of like the gameplay, the story, leveling up the guns, the ridiculous guns, and seeing what they do and powering them up more. The New Game Plus even being fun. The shocking amount of heart between Ratchet and Clank and the characters.
Yeah, that was adorable.
And I love seeing what they're doing on the current systems even. And
Rift,
just awesome. Yeah, I love Ratchet games. I kept trying to think, it's like the PS2 era is such a strong era, and yet I just couldn't pick games from it for some reason. But I have to include this in some way.
Yeah. I mean, Ratchet and Clank is probably forever going to go down as one of the most innovative. What are these called?
I mean, it's an action adventure platformer. Like, it's a shoot 'em up. It's a game. You collect shiny things. You blow things up.
Nostalgia of
it's funny.
Is just so
kind of some goofy social commentary.
Yeah. And it's got that thing that even in the modern...
They look like a Pixar movie now.
Right. That's... Yes. That's so cool. Love what's going on with them now. I'm so happy they're alive, and I'm sad that Jack and Daxter did not continue like Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, I don't know if Naughty Dog can go back to their more whimsical side.
That was the only big sad thing. The little mini games with Captain Quark.
Oh, yeah. Hero.
Yeah. I know they're going back and forth with Clank.
Even attempted movie, yeah.
We already talked about Halo. I'll briefly just talk about Call of Duty.
Pro gamer over here. Yeah. Former pro.
Our little major league gamer days. Call of Duty. Let's put Modern Warfare.
I was gonna say I was really struggling because it's been such a big part of my life. I didn't know which one to pick, but I think I have to do. Playing Call of Duty 4 for the first time. I was over at Josh Walker's house, and I brought the Xbox over because we were playing Halo, and we didn't have Wi-Fi or Ethernet because we had it and it broke down and no one knew how to get it fixed, so we were playing Halo over there, and then I was like, hey, I heard Call of Duty 4 is fun online, and just the sheer crack addiction that became of all these numbers popping up and experience and unlocking this and doing this and leveling up is just... Man.
Yeah.
Plus an incredible story.
Crack addiction is a great way to say it.
I shouldn't be talking to him. We're not even on our shared favorites right now. I'm just talking over your game. I forgot we had a shared favorites.
It's basically a shared. Totally is. I mean, yeah. You just summarized it perfectly. It's the crack addiction of this is when you're online and you're just like
prestige.
You're prestiging, you're leveling up your guns, all this stuff, and then the cool thing is this was also around the time that Major League Gaming became popular. And what you would have to do back then is you had to set up your own game battles. Like Chandler and I used to do this, Chandler Cost. We would set up our own game battles online, and then we would rank up as a 2v2 team. So you'd set up a game battle online, then you would meet up in a server with the other two players. You would have all the specs. So if you're playing Search and Destroy or Team Deathmatch or whatever you're playing, and then at the end you would go after whoever won, you would both go and report the scores, and you would try to get your win-loss really high. And we had sometime we had really good win-loss, and we were showing up pretty high on Major League game battles. But at that time it wouldn't be like the esports we had today. It was a much more ghetto version of where you're uploading your scores, and you can earn a couple $100 by performing in certain tournaments and stuff like that, but it's not arenas and it's not 2025 style. But this was the OG. It was the indie scene. Yeah. Major League Game Battles was the indie scene 15, 16, 17, 18 years ago. This was, almost 20 years ago we're talking. Major League Game Battles and Call of Duty being one of the main, and Halo was huge too in terms of having a scene. And I think on console you had not console, on PC you had
Like for the big E games earlier?
yeah
the StarCraft.
no the FPS.
Oh, Counter-Strike.
Counter-Strike. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm like, thank you for a second.
Thank you. So you had, and Counter-Strike was huge. It was the PC's version.
Huge. Yeah,
it was PC's version 20 years ago of Call of Duty and Halo. So, I mean, these games took the world by storm, and not to mention the amount of time that you would take and do Call of Duty Zombies. I mean, the amount of time that we would play this.
Yeah, World at War. That was the first one, right?
World at War was the first one that introduced it. But it was like you would literally try to get to wave 30, wave 50, wave 70, and it would take you so long. It would take you like 4 hours to try to get to that far, and then you would have to cycle and start again if everybody died, and you would try to get all those perks and everything.
Still the only zombies I really played was that original one.
It was the OG.
You beat the game, and it's like, what is happening? What?
So fun. And then we have some shared honorable mentions as well here. So
just looking at these are basically like games we love and maybe recognize as being the greatest games of all time. They just don't happen to be on our favorites.
Yeah.
You know, like God of War, like, and again, a big part of making my lists was games I've replayed the most. But this was a game where it's like you beat it and it's just like, that was a perfect game.
Exactly.
I don't feel the need to replay it and redo it again. I'm sure I will. But like, it was just like, this is perfect.
Perfect.
Like, nailed it. Rebooted this character, which was ridiculous on the PS2 and PS3.
Yep.
And like was just savage in this, to being this heartfelt father-son journey, and again tying into like the cool making of videos, the Raising Kratos Sony documentary.
Exactly.
Awesome.
That was
but
so good. Yep.
What an incredible game, and the follow-up, and it's just like, man, I wish they would have spread it out to 3 games. I feel like Ragnarok, there was just so much going on, such a tight space,
right,
that they could have fleshed it out. But just achievements, these games.
The Blades of Chaos and
seeing those again,
and the axe, just mind-blowing to play God of War and Ragnarok after playing it when we were in the PS2 days, and then seeing it like, this is like if you only got to play Zelda on the 64 and then you were, here's Breath of the Wild, and we were just like, what is this? And so this is our version of being able to use all of the what were these called in the bottom left again? The way that the axe is power ups, or the Blades of Chaos is power ups.
Oh, like your special abilities.
Those special abilities were so cool. They were so varied. You could take so many different gameplay styles or angles. I mean, the world was gorgeous in both of them. I mean, let's put a little bit of Ragnarok gameplay up also.
Well, it's good because Ragnarok is the better gameplay between the two, with I think the combat designer of the first game being the director of the second. So just in terms of playing the game, Ragnarok seems so much far ahead, even if the story's not as tight.
Atreus, you're right. Playing as Atreus also was huge in Ragnarok, and also that the relationship between Kratos and Atreus kind of again mirrored the father-son that you never really got in a game, because you got Joel and Ellie in Last of Us, but you got that father-daughter, or adopted daughter, but then you get the father-son. This probably does it best in all video games. Kratos and Atreus.
Yeah, I suppose, because I was trying to think of other parental type games, and we both played through The Walking Dead and loved that, between Lee and Clem and stuff.
That deserves to be on this list.
Probably could have been on there
on the honorable mentions.
As I just now I'm thinking about it, but yeah, and just the idea of like the father who seemingly wants nothing to do with his son, and how that slow build from just being boy, to
loving him,
Atreus,
really loving him. Yeah,
he grows from boy to Atreus in the second one.
Right. Yep. Atreus' spells and maturity. I mean, his maturity. I love seeing his maturity. I love seeing Kratos' heart opening to Atreus. And I love them taking on the Ragnarok story.
Well, yeah,
was
just
wild.
Baldur in that first game, that insane man, and Freya, and
So
that
cool.
cycle of killing parents and the gods,
Right.
and this, and then the second one, introducing Thor and Odin.
So cool.
Just epic games.
Epic. So God of War and Ragnarok, then another favorite of ours, Shadow of the Colossus.
And I think, did you play the PS2?
Nope, I only played the PS4 Shadow of the Colossus, right?
I rented it, and it controlled so poorly. I remember it being reviewed so well, just being like, this is whatever, missed the boat there. And then it got the gorgeous remaster on PS4, and I played through it, and this was like a religious experience. You know, just the simplicity of,
so simple.
These are the only enemies, is these bosses.
Yep.
The music, the puzzle of how you defeat them.
Exactly.
This was like whenever I was like sick and I'm at home, like this is what I'll play.
Yeah.
And just
it's
awesome.
Like you know that you are absolutely alone. This is another one of those deep metaphysical philosophical games. You're absolutely alone. It's a total empty barren land. Nobody tells you jack shit except that you know that there are these massive creatures, and that each one of these massive creatures acts as a shadow, because when you get in there and you start probing at its weak point on the top of its head or wherever it is, which you have to learn that you can only grab onto the fur and climb up that way or find environmental things to jump onto them or whatever it is, each time that you stab at the creature and get the shadow comes out, at the very end when that bar up here depletes, where does the shadow go?
Yeah,
it goes in
sucked in.
You.
Well,
it gets sucked into you. You have to integrate the shadow. You have to eat it, metabolize it, alchemize it yourself. After you've, quote, alchemized all of the shadows, that's the end of the game.
See, I viewed it as like you're taking on just this burden. Like you're, like, it's noble. You have this dying, if not dead, princess or love interest. Yes. So let's go bring her back. And then as the game progresses, it's not like a celebration when you defeat these creatures. It's sad, and it gets worse, and you start getting in worse shape. And it's like, what are the lengths you're going to go to try to save the ones you love? Yep. And you basically sacrifice your own soul and the soul of this world just to bring her back. And
right.
It's just,
that's another beautiful angle to it, for sure. Yes.
It's like, keep tying to The Last of Us. Sorry, the most talked about game, but it's Joel burning the world down to save Ellie. Exactly. It's like that's what the hero is doing here.
There it is. There's that scene. The shadow, you eat it, goes in you. Yep. It's a good recurrent. I love this little portal thing that's also between everything. It's just so good. But this
is a great example. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just make it shiny and look good and make the same game. We talked about all these remasters of old games, Ocarina, and this. Yeah. This game is literally they made the controls a little more playable, and they just made it look prettier and redid the music.
And it was amazing in PS4. Yep. Great example of that. Grand Theft Auto 4, another classic. So, go ahead, Greg.
Well, I was just trying to think. I've played all the 3D GTAs. My brother still plays GTA 5 like it's his job. But like, these were like the tentpole games, experiences being in this open world in a modern world, a city, driving cars, shooting guns.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden, like, this is again the new generation. You're seeing things in higher fidelity, better graphics, but also like all of a sudden there's a story that I care about in this character Nico Bellic.
Yep.
And your cousin Roman and everyone in like kind of the immigrant's tale to this promised land, but seeing it still like seedy and dark undergrounds, the story playthrough. It's just like This is the first Grand Theft Auto game I ever beat. I could never beat the PS2 ones. And I beat this one the day before Grand Theft Auto 5 came out.
There you go.
Anticipation, because once again, I would just play it to play it. And it's like, I should actually beat this one day. And just, they had the awesome physics system, the music, the controlling of cars, the kind of hint at what their online game would be with GTA 5.
Right.
And this one is just, I would be happy if they just remade GTA 4, and I hear rumors that 6 Nico will show up in some form, and
that would be awesome.
Nothing would be cooler than that.
Yeah, 3, I remember when I first got introduced to 3 with Max Chadliev, I remember that it was so mind-blowing because it was so, like, freeing.
Yeah.
It was so freeing, and it was so, like, unconstrained or unlimited, and it was very cool in that way. And then San Andreas and 4 and 5, they've just been basically more and more putting somebody in the role of do whatever, you are the one in the city, do whatever, be however you want. And then in terms of the missions, you'll have story missions and whatnot, but then you'll have the free roaming or free playing mode, and that there's nothing quite like the GTA free roaming or free playing mode. And then the online side of it too, that gets you into all kinds of, obsessive amounts of hours and hours about playing in little container. Not just the free roam mode that GTA 5 became famous for, owning your own empire and that kind of thing, but even in the San Andreas days, you had the small little containers of going and playing a team. It was really fun to play team deathmatch or free for alls in GTA Online, in their maps, their portions of the maps.
They're masters of making a world, like a world we know, from Red Dead to this, and you just want to live in that playground. But now they're matching the awesome sandbox and awesome world building with stories and things that match, like a Martin Scorsese movie on crime or gangsters or the underverse.
Yes.
And you want to see where they go?
Can't wait. 6 is going to be nuts. BioShock and also BioShock Infinite.
Sorry, 2.
Yeah. Go ahead and start us off.
Well, I guess, do you want to talk about BioShock 1 and then I would talk about Infinite?
The general gist is you won't have a game that makes you think like, oh, well, again, the art style. Remember we were saying that about Cyberpunk. The same thing's true about BioShock. You get put into, let's do BioShock 1 gameplay here just to pull that up. So, you get thrown into this underwater
fallen paradise.
And it's like, what's the main thing? The main thing is, you're being, quote, oppressed by the outer upper world. And so what do? You try to find a way to build a world underwater that is this fallen paradise, because it's like, how do we not get taxed? How do we not have kings? How do we,
escape religion and gods
gods, all of that stuff. And it's fascinating because then you have that same twin thing where you have the weapon and the power, and it's so cool to play that way, and it's so unique and novel and different, and it makes you question, like, who's commanding you and how are you responding to those commands, and who are these voices and what really am I? And it's very beautiful in that sense, and it's so unique. It's so unique, novel, art style, gameplay, all of that, and then it had a beautiful spiritual successor with Infinite.
Yeah, Infinite, it just kind of spoke to, like, and it's crazy that this and like when this came out, but like it's like Infinite just touched on, like, I love kind of like early 19th like 19th, 20th century, like America stuff, and it kind of taps into a lot of that. It's tying into like the Boxer Rebellion, the idea that
instead of going underwater, you throw
instead
it all
of going
up in
underwater
the sky.
above, it's like a mirror of the first game.
Right.
The whole like Comstock, the idea of kind of like tying into the game of like, there's always a man, there's always a tower, there's always this, and just like it's like it's deep. It seems like it may be deeper than it really is. Maybe it's not. I know there's a lot of like the promise of what was BioShock Infinite supposed to be from its original trailers and Ken Levine tales and stuff, but like I just think it makes you think. It controls fun. The performances do well.
Yep.
You have an all-time heater from Troy Baker being Joel and main character in BioShock Infinite. Yeah. Back to back with a female follower.
Right.
Got it. But
questioning Comstock here is so beautiful. I love that part of this one.
The multiverse before multiverse became in everything.
Exactly.
Mixing and alternate reality.
That's so well said. Because BioShock 1 introducing, you'll always have that tower, and that tower is going to open up to a world, and you run between these towers or whatever, and that was very philosophically edge-pushing before it became mainstreamed with Doctor Strange and all this stuff now. Or Spider-Man in the multiverse, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So, no, I recognize BioShock's the bigger influence on games, but Infinite I loved and love to replay it.
And then oh yeah, baby, Half-Life 2. What a great way to wrap it up.
I was gonna cheat and put the orange box.
I know that's a good cheat because we get Team Fortress.
It's one game,
there.
one disc.
What else is on there?
Portal.
Oh yeah, the Portal's on there, of course.
Which was really hard to leave.
I can't believe we didn't put Portal on.
Really hard to leave Portal or Portal 2. Two perfect games.
I think we have to add Portal and Walking Dead.
It's tough. This is favorites. We're not greatest games.
That's true.
Yeah, this was my one, like, I wish I had a PC so I could play this. And I eventually bought it for PC despite not having a gaming PC that could run it. And it would constantly, I could only play up until the part where you go to Ravenholm, and then it would crash. Crash and crash. And just, one day I'll be able to play this. And one day it randomly just loaded through, and I got to play it and finish it. And then just from cool, like, dystopian, like, Children of Men universe style future of aliens taking over. So cool. The incredible physics system and one of the greatest weapons of all time, and the gravity gun.
The gravity gun, baby.
And and going to horror in Ravenholm, and like just
Ravenholm was goosebumpsing. Oh,
and then the ultimate cliffhanger in episode 1 and 2 with episode 2 with Eli going down, and then here maybe not so much anymore with Half-Life Alyx coming out, which is another one of those. Man, I wish I could have a gaming PC and VR so I could play that, but this is just one of those all-timers. Why can't Valve make threequels?
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe it'll happen. We don't know.
Yeah, Orange Box Part 2.
That was mind-blowing when we just had the
Portal
controller.
3, Team Fortress 3.
It was just, right. Then, all of this, those crab head, the gravity gun, it was just also novel and just, again, philosophically mind-bending. I just loved it.
Plus, it was like thrown in with Counter-Strike 2.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, by the way, that too.
Okay, just briefly, we just got to do a brief Portal and Walking Dead love bomb. So, again, the fact that no game still has come out that's like this.
Splitgate 2.
Yeah, right. This puzzle, this game with its puzzles was just...
It's perfect. Sorry to keep using the word, but yeah.
It's just perfect.
And to go from this small little funny game in Portal 1 that you can beat in, an hour or two, whatever. And then Portal 2 to be its own full-length adventure, and oh my lord. Yeah. The performances of the characters. J.K. Simmons before he won an Oscar showing up in the second one. Cave Johnson. Like, incredible.
Oh. Just just as soon as this physics system penetrated my mind, I was like, what? We can do this blue-orange portal thing and jump around and solve puzzles in this cool way in a video game? I was like, what the? Yeah. Oh, so fun. And there's all different kinds of ways to do that. It's just so unique.
The momentum carrying over as you fall. The momentum
carrying over. Doing that thing. Like, it's just... I loved solving these puzzles, and the cake is always a lie, of course.
Cake is a lie. The Rat Man, I mind things. GLaDOS becoming a potato in the second one.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's subtle things
Stephen Merchant being the idiot robot and just all his hilarious lines. And
the subtleties of the cake being a lie, I mean...
Space Cube.
Yeah,
Space.
What are you looking for as consciousness if you're already the thing that's looking? Okay, The Walking Dead. And that's it. We'll do this. This season 1 especially. But you making really tough... Main character again is?
Lee.
You making these really hard decisions as Lee in a dystopic zombie apocalypse.
Oh, it's the apocalypse.
Yeah. And you have to make these hard decisions because there's no clear decision about who in the you have emotional attachments that happen in the cast, and then you have to make really tough decisions about who's telling the truth, who's lying. Why are you guys giving rations away, or who's giving rations away? Why are we losing ammo or stock? And then you have to take care of the girl
Clementine,
Lee and Clementine. You have to take care of Clementine. Clementine is not your...
No, you just find her as your...
because you go into that house at the beginning.
Because you're going to jail. You get in a car accident, so you're just trying to get away from what the heck's going on, and you find her parents were in another city.
House.
She's in the tree house.
Yep, right. And you take her on, so this is another good... Lee and Clementine's another good father-adopted daughter bond, because now you have to caretake for her through this game, and she's growing emotionally mature through having to see all of these tough decisions be made, and then you're these are hard.
Duck.
Yeah, Duck.
Our boy.
And then your decisions obviously compound over time, like you save this person
or not
right? And then towards the end, of course, spoiler, you get bit. Is it scratched or bit? Bit on your leg.
And it's very much like the Arthur Morgan, you're dying. We played Red Dead before you played The Walking Dead. So it's like, you're dying. There's kind of a finality to it. What can you do in your time that you have left? And
right.
Yeah, just awesome.
And in this case, you tell Clementine, you got to mature without me, basically. And it's tough. And you either live long enough to get infected, or you end it, ask her to end it, or she ends it for you, right? You ask her to?
You can.
Okay. You can.
Yeah, you can ask her to.
Or you just do it yourself when she leaves.
Yep.
Okay. And then you play as her. She's the main character in the rest of the games.
At least the next one, for sure.
Right.
And then it bounces around and tells other stories.
Awesome game with choices, and then asking your friends. That's how we did it. We both played it at the same time, and then we would call each other after we finished a chapter, and we would be like, all right, what choices did you make? Did we make the same choices?
Yeah.
Very fun way to play with a friend, too. Okay, and now the end stuff part of the episode. So we do games and we do end stuff.
All right, following up the LeBron and Luka no.
Yeah. The Luka and
Anthony Davis
trade. There it is. Yeah.
Turned out it didn't work for either.
Maybe. We don't know yet.
At least yet.
Yeah. So the end stuff on this one is our favorite wing flavors at B-Dubs. We've been going to Buffalo Wild Wings since we were kids for all-you-can-eat wings. And we've been through a lot of iterations of their sauces, but let's look it up. Buffalo Wild Wings sauces. There we go. All right. Get a nice high-quality one. Okay, heat index. There we go. Okay, let's just go with this one. So, Greg's new favorite has become Thai curry. Is that right?
Yep, Thai curry has taken over top slot.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say
It,
that.
it overcame Parmesan garlic, which was my favorite, which I grew up hating and then became my favorite.
Ended up liking it.
But Thai curry has stolen it.
I agree with you. Parmesan garlic, Thai curry's phenomenal. I'm a sucker for honey barbecue and the normal medium with ranches. I'm a sucker for those.
Mango habanero.
Mango hob.
Kills it. Kills other places' versions.
That's starting to get pretty spicy, though. Thai curry is surprisingly not even that spicy. Whereas mango hob's definitely getting spice. Lemon pepper on the dry rubs is good.
Lemon pepper and desert heat.
The
Chipotle
desert
barbecue.
heat's up there. Also, Chipotle barbecue was good, but
it's pretty good too.
They said they were running out of that. Or salt and vinegar. It's classic. But if Greg was to get only one, it would be Thai curry. And parm gras.
Probably Thai curry, just because it's, it has some heat, bold flavor. You can dip it still.
Yes.
You don't feel weird dipping it. It feels weird dipping Parmesan garlic into something.
And anything, it's its own flavor. Yep, it's true.
Yeah, that's my current top. What about you?
I think I'm up there with you at Thai curry. This last time that I had it with you, it was so good.
They keep changing their blazing. I used to really like their blazing, but current run, it's
dry rub wise. Dry rub wise, lemon pepper is good.
Desert heat they claim as their second hottest flavor, and it is. I don't think it's in the bottom 5 of heat. I don't get anything from it, so I don't get that. But yeah, wild is really. I really enjoy wild.
Wild.
No.
Yep. The trick is if you do unlimited, don't pig out on French fries.
Live your life.
If you want to get that more chicken wings for your buck.
No, more seasonal flavors or experimental ones, please. Like do a different one each month or something. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, true. I like that a lot too. Experimental flavors. I think we found where we're going to have dinner. Is today an unlimited?
I don't even know what Friday is.
Okay, we'll have to look it up. Any other end stuff?
No. Try to come back maybe a touch sooner than
last time. Yeah. We have to find a third episode subject because we've been
best video game foods.
We had top video game studios. That was one. Studios was one.
Could do a most influential games. That's how we probably talked a lot about. We probably do that later.
Right.
We really, as Americans, we miss out on a whole mess of especially like Japanese games.
Right.
And that whole run of their RPGs, especially.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very personalized, like we said. Yeah. Other subjects, though, that we've queued up. I know we talked about favorite characters. Video game characters is a good one. like favorite. Also, video game technologies I think is fascinating. Everything from even like having the evolution of the controllers, or having a Switch, the mobile thing, the VR headsets and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What GPUs have done for consoles and for PCs. So we'll see what the third. We have a couple possible episode subjects for the third, and if you all have any thoughts and you want to comment below with your favorite wing sauce or your favorite video games, would love to see a little list from the comments. Drop a comment below with your top favorite 5 or 10 video games. That's a fun thing to add. Or another subject that you would like to hear talked about on Games and Stuff, definitely drop that in the comments.
Yeah, it turns out there's lots of games to talk about and even more stuff.
I knew this episode was going to be crazy long. 3.25 hours on just the top 10 games, which we had a decent amount of overlaps. But then we had, of course, our honorable mentions. But even on just pulling up the games, talking about them at length, because each one of these games took, millions of dollars and thousands of engineer and designer and animator and storyteller hours.
Well, you could do the great games that didn't make our favorites.
Oh,
There's kind of a Italian plumber that didn't make it on either of our lists.
The fact that the Italian plumber didn't make it.
Let alone arcade cabinets or any kind of fighting genres.
Which cabinets?
Maybe Pac-Man, Galaga, anything like that. Street Fighter.
Isami. They didn't make it. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we should do. What should we do? How do we describe it? We got to figure out how to describe it. Yeah, top games that didn't make our favorite video games list. I don't know how to. We'll figure out how to do it. Because Mario is obviously quintessential in video game lore, but somehow didn't make. Because we could have put Super Smash Bros. On here because it's obviously one of the greatest experiences in video game history.
It was our favorite games, not the greatest games.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, before we trigger each other more with what we didn't add on.
Goat Simulator, Rockstar's Table Tennis.
Yeah. Goats lawn mowing simulator. Yeah. Or could we not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate you listening to Games
and Stuff.
And we'll be back with a third episode on a subject that is yet to be determined, but
it'll probably be about games or stuff.
Probably be about games 90% and stuff 10%.
Could do 15.
Could do 20 maybe. Depends. Drop us a comment below with your list of top 5, top 10 games. Would love to see that list. And or your thoughts on the lists that we made together and that we have individually, and just let us know your thoughts on that. If you've never seen quite an episode like this before, where you got 2 lists of top video games be talked about and shared video content of while we talked about it, share the episode with who you think would find it interesting. Maybe you haven't played a lot of these games. Go and play them. If you have friends that are familiar with some of the games or that haven't played the other ones, share the episode. Be like, go and write them down. Send them the list. Be interesting to have more content also about why are these games the favorites? What are your favorites?
Yeah, what should we check out?
What should we check out that we didn't bring up? Any other closing thoughts?
No, we'll try to keep her under 4 hours.
Next and stuff conversation. All right. Yep. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Much love. We'll see you on another episode soon.